Chapter 663. With the observant finger jade plate, Qin Wushuang was not afraid to play hide and seek with Xian Wuji. Although Jiufeng Yunfei had good strength, compared to Qin Wushuang, his leg power was much inferior. Qin Wushuang had the purple cloud in yang wings. Although he could not fly under the prohibition, it could still help Qin Wushuang move faster than others. However, to Qin Wushuang's surprise, regardless of how they tried to get rid of him, that Xian Wuji was like a maggot in the tarsal bone and always stuck to his back. From the observant finger jade plate, Qin Wushuang clearly realized that Xian Wuji was able to follow the direction they were running and follow behind them. This situation made Qin Wushuang feel incredibly astonished. Could it be that this Xian Wuji also had a tool similar to the observant finger jade plate? Or else, how could he have done this? Thinking of this possibility, Qin Wushuang felt even more calm. He decided to try again. He said to Jiufeng Yunfei, "Brother Jiufeng, let's do an experiment. You and I will go separately. After 600 miles we will meet again. Let's see how this Xian Wuji is able to follow behind us." Jiufeng Yunfei also felt it was strange as he nodded. "Then be careful," Qin Wushuang said with a smile. "Don't worry, although this Xian Wuji is the son of the Heavenly Emperor, I have my ways to deal with him. If he wants to compete with me in leg power, then let's compete with him." With the trump card of the purple cloud in yang wings, Qin Wushuang was not afraid of Xian Wuji in terms of speed. In terms of endurance, Qin Wushuang would not feel any pressure at all. Qin Wushuang was well aware of the number of trump cards he had. Initially, he had acquired a total of 6 first-rate treasures from Lu Xianluo's Deep Abyss Treasure Cave. The Supreme Tao 5 Elemental Talisman was only one of them. The Heart Illusion Mask had already played a great role. He could also refine the Sky Pilfered Pill at any time. For the remaining 3, he had not used the ground tracking seal much. As for the remaining 2 items, Qin Wushuang had not used them yet. For the time being, Qin Wushuang couldn't use the Great Golem Puppet. As for the remaining Spiritual Energy Pearl, it would be of great use at this moment. With this Spiritual Power Pearl, Qin Wushuang was not worried about competing with Xian Wuji in terms of endurance. Even if he continuously consumed his spiritual energy, this spiritual energy elemental bead could still replenish it for him. With this Spiritual Power Pearl at hand, why would Qin Wushuang fear to race with Xian Wuji? Now, he only wanted to confirm whether this Xian Wuji had truly grasped the method to follow him. If so, it would be very interesting. Both sides restrained each other. After setting an approximate meeting place with Jiufeng Feiyun, after they separated, Qin Wushuang deliberately lured Xian Wuji to circle around the mountain valley. Indeed, as he had expected, regardless of where Qin Wushuang went, that Xian Wuji was able to keep tracking him. Now, Qin Wushuang was almost certain that Xian Wuji must have a tool similar to the observant finger jade plate. Additionally, he must have fallen into Xian Wuji's trap when he was at the entrance of the cave. Now, Xian Wuji was not as relaxed as Qin Wushuang. Qin Wushuang, Qin Wushuang. Why is it always this kid who comes out to ruin things? Inwardly, Xian Wuji was incredibly frustrated. Being the son of the Heavenly Emperor, he had always been used to the feeling of being in a high position. Among the young generation of the Xian Yuan Mound, not to mention suffering a loss like today, almost no one could be on equal footing with him. Even among the most exceptional disciples of the Heavenly Emperor 8 Gates, only a few of them could enter Xian Wuji's discerning eyes. For example, Qin Taichong of the Qin clan, Yun Zhongye of the Yun clan, and a few others. However, these names could only enter his discerning eyes. To truly compare with Xian Wuji, there was more or less a difference. For your information, among the young generation, only Xian Wuji was able to enter the peak of the common mysterious stage. This sense of superiority, accumulated over a long period of time, allowed Xian Wuji to possess endless confidence. When facing any opponent from the young generation of the Xian Yuan Mound, he would have a sense of superiority from the bottom of his heart. However, at this moment, a trace of a ripple had appeared in Xian Wuji's firm confidence. Although he didn't want to admit it, he had to admit that something had happened. Finally, among the young generation of the Xian Yuan Mound, an existence that could challenge his authority had appeared. Although he had never faced this problem head-on, during this short battle of wits and power with Qin Wushuang, it allowed him to fully realize the methods and power of this Qin Wushuang. Perhaps, at the moment, this Qin Wushuang was not enough to pose a fatal threat to him. However, how could Xian Wuji overlook this? Qin Wushuang was only a little over 20 years old, and much younger than Xian Wuji. With Qin Wushuang's speed of growth, he could clearly foresee that certainly this Qin Wushuang would become his greatest enemy in the future. Xian Wuji was able to achieve today's accomplishments because he had an abnormally firm will. After recognizing the situation, he firmly believed that if he did not take out Qin Wushuang today, he would certainly become a great calamity in the future. Therefore, he was determined to kill Qin Wushuang at this 10,000 Flower Valley and pull out this great calamity. He would never allow Qin Wushuang to continue to grow. Like me, this Qin Wushuang has entered the immortal leaf flying boat. Since my communication jade plate cannot be used, certainly he will not be able to use it. Even if I kill him today, he will not be able to deliver the news. This is the best time. Additionally, with the death of Qin Wushuang, even if the rumors are not favorable to me, without any evidence, what can the Qin clan do to the Heavenly Emperor Gate? Xian Wuji also had his own plans. Previously, Xian Wuji had set up a little formation at the entrance of the cave. This formation did not possess any attack power. However, once it was touched, it could form a shapeless tracking talisman that would fall onto the body of the person who touched the formation. In this case, Xian Wuji could use that shapeless tracking talisman to track him. As soon as Qin Wushuang had rushed out of the cave, he had been possessed by Xian Wuji's shapeless talisman. Unconsciously, he had fallen into Xian Wuji's trap. Unless Qin Wushuang was an elite warrior of the Supreme Dao stage, or else, under that situation, it would be impossible for him to see through that tracking talisman. Only, in the end, this tracking talisman was not as useful as the observant finger jade plate. The effect of the tracking talisman would only last for about 3 to 7 days. Of course, Xian Wuji was incredibly confident. He believed that with his skills at the peak of the common mysterious stage, it would not be difficult to catch up to Qin Wushuang. However, the reality made Xian Wuji feel incredibly surprised. After chasing for a while, he discovered with surprise that Qin Wushuang seemed to be able to maintain a certain distance from him. Now, clearly Xian Wuji had not realized that Qin Wushuang was also able to lock onto his position. Inwardly, he only thought, Qin Wushuang, this kid is running away. It seems that he is also worried about that divine beast. Humph, I will compete with you and see whose leg power is stronger. Xian Wuji was incredibly confident of his own strength. Beneath the Supreme Dao stage, Xian Wuji would never consider himself a second person. Although this Qin Wushuang had exceptional talent, there was still a fatal difference when compared to the strongest person beneath the Supreme Dao stage at the peak of the common mysterious stage. Or else, that Qin Wushuang would not have run away in a panic. Carrying this confidence, Xian Wuji increased his speed. He knew that Qin Wushuang was only a few hundred miles away from him. He could definitely catch up to him at this distance. With this goal in mind, Xian Wuji unconsciously chased for another half a day. To his astonishment, he discovered that the distance between him and Qin Wushuang did not shrink substantially. For Xian Wuji, he did not know if that Qin Wushuang was doing it intentionally or not, but he seemed to be playing hide and seek with him. Moving from east to west, Xian Wuji could not make sense of it. The more Xian Wuji chased, the more uneasy he felt inwardly. Looking at the current situation, even someone as confident as Xian Wuji could not help but feel shaken. Could this Qin Wushuang be truly devilish? Judging from his strength, he is only at the perfect void martial stage. How could he keep a distance from me and seem to know that I am chasing after him? Could it be that he is deliberately luring me to chase after him? Xian Wuji was overly suspicious and felt vexed inwardly. At this moment, he could not but help to miss those friends of his. If Yan Qiansui and Lei Hong had not died and Xian Wuang was still alive, surely the four of them could kill Qin Wushuang by joining hands. At this moment, Xian Wuji discovered that regardless of how much he urged his full power, it seemed that Qin Wushuang would always keep a distance from him. He would never be able to shorten this distance. Inwardly, Qin Wushuang was also harboring the same idea. While he was thinking, he was also considering how to take advantage of this opportunity to kill Xian Wuji. With the death of Xian Wuji, certainly the Heavenly Emperor Xian clan would suffer a great loss. To the Qin clan, this would be 100% beneficial. Rather than waiting for the Xian clan to make a move, it would be better to make the first move. Certainly this Xian Wuji is not willing to let me take the divine fruit. This time, he is chasing after me to seize this divine fruit and kill me. Qin Wushuang thought inwardly. Xian Wuji has a supreme Tao weapon and is at the peak of the common mysterious stage. With my current strength, even with the best supreme Tao 5 elemental talisman and that graceful spiritual bow, it would be difficult to shoot Xian Wuji to death with one arrow. To kill this Xian Wuji, I must break through. I will only have a chance if I summon the last 2 sealed spiritual beasts. To kill Xian Wuji, he must make use of all the advantageous conditions. Or else, it would be difficult to kill someone at the peak of the common mysterious stage. Even if he were to make use of all the advantageous conditions, most likely he would not be able to kill Xian Wuji. After all, Xian Wuji was the son of the Heavenly Emperor, certainly he would have many trump cards. Xian Wuji also did not lack supreme Tao weapons. These two were burning with anxiety as they chased each other and played a game of tag at the 10,000 Flower Valley. Every few hundred miles, Qin Wushuang would meet up with Jiufeng Yunfei. He would remind Jiufeng Yunfei which direction to go and to not encounter that 9-change celestial tiger. At least a few thousand martial artists had entered this 10,000 Flower Valley. After the 9-change celestial tiger chased after them for 2 days and 2 nights, more than 1,000 martial artists had become food in his stomach. Across the entire 10,000 Flower Valley, the situation was getting more difficult each day. Besides exceptional martial artists like Xian Wuji and Qin Wushuang, almost everyone was feeling insecure. At the same time when Qin Wushuang was chasing after Xian Wuji, somewhere deep inside the 10,000 Flower Valley, a group of young female martial artists also gathered at a secret place. Clearly, these female martial artists were all disciples of the Amei Daoist sect. Indeed, that little can dressed in green was among them. Only, each of these female disciples revealed a grave expression. Under the imposing gaze of a woman in yellow robes, each of them held their breath with rapt attention and did not dare to make a sound. For a time, the situation appeared incredibly oppressive. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 664. This girl in yellow was the most exceptional genius among the young generation of the Amei Daoist sect. Her name was Ruo Ping Fairy. A layer of frost covered the face of this Ruo Ping Fairy as her expression appeared extremely solemn. For those female disciples next to her, including Little Can, each of them did not dare to look straight at this senior sister Ruo Ping Fairy. The 9-change celestial tiger has awakened, yet the accompanying divine fruit is gone. Tell me, for this matter, how will you have the face to see the chiefs? Ruo Ping Fairy's eyes were like lightning as she scolded lightly. If I had not activated the supreme Tao defenses of the 10,000 Flower Valley in time, you would still have realized it. I only hope that it was not too late for me to activate the supreme Tao defenses. Or else, if the person with the divine fruit had escaped from the 10,000 Flower Valley, you will wait to receive the punishment from the chiefs. This time, the people the Amei Daoist sect had sent to the 10,000 Flower Valley to oversee the general situation were all disciples of the young generation. It was also the Amei Daoist sect's intention to train the young people. Considering the powerful divine skills of the nine-change celestial tiger, initially the Amei Daoist sect was not worried that this group of disciples could not control the situation. Unexpectedly, in the end, an accident had occurred. The accompanying divine fruit of the nine-change celestial tiger would not appear even once in 1,000 years. The Amei Daoist sect had attached great importance to this supreme Tao fruit, or else there would not have been those layers of defenses. Plus, with the nine-change celestial tiger guarding, the Amei Daoist sect had never thought that an accident would occur to the supreme Tao fruit. Those disciples looked at each other in dismay. That little Ken dressed in green moved her mouth. Senior sister, we are only in charge of the outside work. It's the responsibility of Tiger Saint to guard the supreme Tao fruit. This you cannot blame us. Besides, in the abyss before the supreme Tao fruit, wasn't junior sister training under the abyss? She did not react. It seems inappropriate to blame us, right? Little Can's personality was rather swift and fierce as she dared to speak her mind. She did not like to talk back, but would speak whatever was on her mind. Ruo Ping Fairy said with a cold sneer, "According to your words, you guys are not responsible at all?" Little Can's tone was filled with grievance. "We are in charge of guarding each stronghold. When we go in and out, nothing happened. In terms of responsibility, junior sister's responsibility is much greater than ours." Ruo Ping Fairy was surprisingly not angry. She sighed faintly. "Little junior sister, you all know that the second sect master dotes on little junior sister very much. Even if it is little junior sister's responsibility, do you think she will be the one to be punished in the end?" Little Ken said unconvinced. "Then we can't be punished because of this, right?" When Ruo Ping Fairy mentioned little junior sister, there was a hint of helplessness in her expression. In front of this junior sister, even as the eldest senior sister, she had no choice but to lower her proud head. To be honest, she was a little unconvinced. However, the headmaster doted on his little junior sister, and that little junior sister was indeed astonishingly talented. In just a few years, he had charged to the perfect void martial stage from a person who did not know how to train. Although everything had been caused by the Amei Daoist sect's immemorial secret technique, if she didn't have the talent and the bloodline to bear it, if it were an ordinary person, this secret technique would have broken her bones and caused her to die. Eldest senior sister, you have to put in a few good words for us in front of the sect master. This time, we have lured in at least 10,000 martial artists. However, we cannot be blamed for the loss of that divine beast cave. That is not within the scope of our responsibility, right? Ruo Ping Fairy waved her hand. Don't worry too much, this matter has not come to a final conclusion. If the person who stole the divine fruit is still at the 10,000 Flower Valley, we will certainly find a way to capture him. If he has already left, then it will not be easy to take care of. Little Ken said, "Senior sister, after Tiger Saint had awakened, he chased after us. Not long after, you opened the defenses. I believe that the fruit thief would not have such fast speed. To enter that cave, each layer of defenses would take time. The best defense would not be easy to break. Even if he had finished everything, he would need some time to leave the 10,000 Flower Valley. He would not make it in time to calculate." Ruo Ping Fairy had also calculated as she nodded. "I also believe that person has not escaped." One must say that Little Can's analysis was reasonable. However, she didn't know that when Qin Wushuang had entered that cave, he had not touched any defenses. It was because before that, the sky-pilfered mole had already scouted out most of the terrain. Plus that Luo Yi had taken the lead to open the path. It had not taken much effort for Qin Wushuang to enter that cave. On the contrary, it had taken him some time to break the defenses. However, if it weren't for Xian Wuji's interference, Qin Wushuang could have escaped easily before the defenses of the 10,000 Flower Valley were opened. Little Ken said angrily, "Senior sister, per our observation, this time, there were at least a dozen martial artists at the perfect void martial stage that had entered. There were even elite warriors at the exquisite mysterious boundary stage. However, certainly there were no elite warriors of the Supreme Tao." Ruo Ping Fairy gave a faint sigh. "Of course I know this. If an elite warrior of the Supreme Tao had entered, the Supreme Tao defenses of the 10,000 Flower Valley would have been opened automatically. In the end, I was the one who opened the defenses. Of course, certainly no elite warriors of the Supreme Tao had entered. In this case, the people who stole the Supreme Tao fruit must be those above the perfect void martial stage." Little Ken analyzed. "Yes, it's basically like that. Those below the perfect void martial stage would not have any chance to break the defenses of that cave." Ruo Ping Fairy nodded and asked, "Little Can, you are in charge of surveillance. This time, how many people do you know that entered the vicinity of that cave?" Little Can said, "There are many freelance martial artists at the Illusion Heavenly Lake, I don't know them. However, there are a few special people that I have a deep impression of." "Who are they?" Little Ken said. "The one with the deepest impression is Xian Wuji, the son of the Heavenly Emperor of the Xian Yuan Mound Gate. For this person, ever since he had appeared at the 10,000 Flower Valley, I had paid attention to him. He also has 3 friends." "Xian Wuji?" Some astonishment appeared in the eyes of Ruo Ping Fairy. "This Xian Wuji is also joining in the fun?" "Senior sister, certainly that Xian Wuji is powerful. When he walks among the crowd, he exudes a sense of being outstanding." When Little Kin talked about Xian Wuji, she was somewhat impressed. Ruo Ping Fairy gave a long sigh. "Xian Wuji is more than powerful? For our 6 major Taoist sects, not a single one is on par with Xian Wuji. Senior sister, even you are inferior to him?" Little Can was astonished. "Currently, I am only at the peak of the profound mysterious stage. Xian Wuji is already at the peak of the common mysterious stage, and could step into the Supreme Tao stage at any moment." Ruo Ping Fairy asked coldly, "You say, is he or I stronger?" "Peak of the common mysterious stage." There was also a trace of astonishment in Little Can's tone. She mumbled, "No wonder, his aura is so powerful. Indeed, that Xian Wuji is powerful." When she said this, suddenly a trace of strange light emerged from Little Can's eyes. She asked, "Senior sister, could that person that stole the Supreme Tao fruit be Xian Wuji?" "It's not impossible. Being the son of the Heavenly Emperor, certainly Xian Wuji has a Supreme Tao weapon and more or less grasped some Supreme Tao attack rules. It's not impossible for him to break that barrier." Instantly, Ruo Ping Fairy's tone became solemn. "Pass my order, mobilize all the spies in the valley, and keep an eye on Xian Wuji. As soon as you discover his whereabouts, send your spiritual perception immediately. Senior sister, none of us are his opponent," Little Kin said emotionally. "Could it be we should send Tiger Saint?" Ruo Ping Fairy asked indifferently, "What? You are not willing?" Little Ken blushed. "I am not related to him, why would I not be willing? However, senior sister, that Xian Wuji is a good partner for you to pass the love calamity. If you can pass Xian Wuji, you will have great hope to make a dash for the Supreme Tao stage, right?" Ruo Ping Fairy said with a bitter smile, "I would not dare." Little Can was surprised. "Why not?" Ruo Ping Fairy gave a long sigh. Regardless of any aspect, he is stronger than me. If I go to him to pass the love calamity, in case I get trapped and consigned to eternal damnation, it would be miserable. Littlekin laughed mischievously. It would be great if I was also at the peak of the common mysterious stage. I would play with Xian Wuji at this 10,000 flower valley and make a dash for the supreme Tao stage. Stop daydreaming. You should think about how to make a dash for the exquisite mysterious boundary stage. Your current strength is already extremely stable at the perfect void martial stage. If you do not work hard and miss the best opportunity, it would be detrimental to your future development. You would not wish for junior sister to catch up and enter the exquisite mysterious boundary stage before you, right? Littlekin raised the corner of her mouth. Of course not. For sure I will make it before junior sister, you guys just watch. Ruo Ping Fairy said indifferently. All right, send the order quickly. There must be no mistakes. When you see Xian Wuji's whereabouts, report to me immediately. I will be in charge of contacting Tiger Saint. After she finished speaking, suddenly the figure of this Ruo Ping Fairy became illusory. With a flash of light green waves, her entire person disappeared into the sky. In a moment, the figure of Ruo Ping Fairy dropped before the cave of the divine beast. Frowning slightly, she looked around for a while and walked into the cave. She arrived before the abyss with ease and familiarity. Ruo Ping Fairy looked at the stone platform and saw a broken long vine that had withered on the stone platform. After the divine fruit had been plucked, this long vine had also withered. Ruo Ping Fairy felt extremely vexed, and a trace of viciousness flashed across her eyes. She stared at the bottom of the abyss and secretly gritted her teeth. Shui Ruolin, did you do it on purpose? She could only think of these words inwardly and would not dare to speak them out. After hesitating for a long time, she seemed to have made a difficult decision. She waved her sleeve and, like a curtain, the water in the abyss separated from the two sides automatically. It formed two water curtains and kept opening up a space downward. This abyss was a few dozen meters deep. Suddenly, a burst of white light rushed up from the bottom of the abyss. A ball of qi slowly rushed up. This ball of qi was like a blooming white lotus, and a person was sitting inside. If Qin Wushuang was on the side, he would certainly cry out in surprise. Indeed, this person was Shui Ruolin, the little miraculous doctor he had met by chance at the Bowl Valley. This kind-hearted and pure girl still retained her youth. It was as if time had never left any traces on her body. Senior sister, what business do you have with me? Shui Ruolin's voice sounded lightly. To be continued. If you want to know what happened later, please log on to www.chidian.com. More chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 665. Ruo Ping Fairy suppressed the anger inside her heart and pointed at the stone platform. She said lightly, "Junior sister, you are truly calm. Could it be you have not realized that something is missing from this cave?" Shui Ruolin shot a glance and saw that the long vines on the stone platform had withered. The divine white tiger that had been sleeping next to it had also disappeared without a trace. If it were an ordinary person, certainly they would reveal a strange expression when they saw this situation. However, Shui Ruolin seemed to have not seen anything. Her expression was still as calm as an ancient well and did not show the slightest abnormal reaction. She only gave a light "oh" and did not speak a word. "Junior sister, the supreme Tao fruit is gone. Could it be you have not realized?" Ruo Ping Fairy was so angry that her lungs were about to explode. She was just waiting to harvest the supreme Tao fruit. Ruo Ping Fairy knew that this time, the supreme Tao fruit were twins. Unconsciously, she had already determined that currently, in the Amei Taoist sect, only she, a disciple at the exquisite mysterious boundary stage, was qualified to take this supreme Tao fruit. For her fellow disciples, The strongest few were only at the perfect void martial stage and were slightly weaker than her. Since she was the senior sister, regardless of how one looked at it, she should be given one. Because she had always harbored this ambition, Ruo Ping Fairy valued this supreme Tao fruit greatly. Yet at this moment, this divine Tao fruit had vanished without a trace, so how could it not cause her to feel deep rage? She even suspected that this junior sister had deliberately turned a blind eye to it? The supreme Tao fruit is very important to the sect masters. Junior sister, this supreme Tao fruit disappeared right before your eyes. Could it be that you did not hear any movements? Ruo Ping Fairy was still restraining her fear toward Shui Rulin as she did not dare to speak too harshly. Shui Rulin shook her head. I was training at the bottom of the abyss and just happened to enter a meditative state. If you had not come here, I would not have woken up. Ruo Ping Fairy opened her eyes widely and looked left and right. Clearly, she wanted to know whether this Shui Rulin was lying or not. However, regardless of how she looked, she could not see any clues. From beginning to end, Shui Rulin remained unmoved and did not show any ripples. Ah, junior sister, I am afraid that the chiefs will fly into a rage with the disappearance of this supreme Tao fruit. You'd better think about how to deal with the sect leader's anger. Ruo Ping Fairy said in a very caring tone. It sounded like she was worried for Shui Rulin, but in reality, she wanted to leave a mark on Shui Rulin's tranquil Tao heart. Who knew that Shui Rulin still faintly said, "Oh." Then she said, "I understand." This answer made Ruo Ping Fairy feel as if her fist had landed on cotton. She could not exert any strength at all. Junior sister, the person who stole the supreme Tao fruit might not have left yet. Right now, the entire 10,000 Flower Valley is hunting down that fruit thief. Do you want to help? Or continue to hide here and cultivate? Shui Rulin's eyelashes fluttered and she raised her head. Really? You haven't left yet? That's right. According to our speculations, the fruit thief shouldn't have left so quickly. Because not long after the divine beast left, I activated the divine Tao restriction of the 10,000 Flower Valley. The speed of a fruit thief shouldn't be that fast. Besides, we suspect that the fruit thief is most likely the son of the Heavenly Emperor of the Xian Yuan Mound Heavenly Emperor Mountain, Xan Wuji. When Ruo Ping Fairy said this, suddenly she asked intentionally, "By the way, junior sister, your hometown is also in the Xian Yuan Mound, right? Do you know this Xan Wuji?" Shui Rulin shook her head lightly. "No. I grew up in a mountain valley. Besides the mountain people there, I don't know anyone else." Ruo Ping Fairy chuckled. "I hope so, haha. Alright, junior sister, I am going to track down the fruit thief." After she had finished speaking, she did not linger and left the cave in a flash. When Shui Rulin saw Ruo Ping Fairy leave, she gave a long sigh. She turned to look at the long withered vine on the stone platform and thought, "Is it Xan Wuji? It can't be Xan Wuji. I would not remember that familiar feeling wrongly. It must be him, it must be Brother Qin. My feeling will not be wrong." Initially, Shui Rulin had been training inside the abyss. Before Qin Wushuang had entered this stone platform, she had already seen the situation above the abyss through her divine skill. Although Qin Wushuang was wearing a mask with Shui Rulin's natural beauty, she had a strange intuition and was sure that this person was Qin Wushuang. This intuition was an innate ability that Shui Rulin possessed. Now, after some training, it had become even more sensitive. Most importantly, Qin Wushuang had always been the person she cared about the most. Naturally, this intuition had become even stronger. When Qin Wushuang had taken out the graceful spiritual bow, Shui Rulin's heart had trembled in that instant. She immediately realized that her intuition was not wrong. Initially, Qin Wushuang had used the graceful spiritual bow at the Bowl Valley. Shui Rulin had a deep impression of it. Now, seeing the graceful spiritual bow again, how could Shui Rulin not be sure that it was Qin Wushuang? Therefore, when Qin Wushuang had attacked that supreme Tao defense mechanism to take the divine fruit, she had not activated the strongest defense mechanism. Qin Wushuang was also lucky. If Shui Rulin had activated the strongest defense mechanism at the bottom of the abyss, even if Qin Wushuang's strength had doubled, certainly it would not have been enough for him to take away the supreme Tao fruit. For a time, Shui Rulin had forgotten about everything. Only when Qin Wushuang had taken away the supreme Tao fruit did she realize the light. Inwardly, she did not have the slightest regret of losing the divine fruit. On the contrary, she felt strange. Why had Brother Qin come to the illusion heavenly lake? Why had he come to the 10,000 flower valley? Could it be that he had come to find me? When she thought here, Shui Rulin's heart thumped wildly. Her emotions rose and fell endlessly. From her cheeks to the roots of her ears, she blushed. What supreme Tao fruit, what successor to the Amei Taoist sect, from beginning to end, Shui Rulin had never liked these things that had been forced upon her. After she had been brought to the Amei Taoist sect by that woman dressed in imperial clothing, although the Amei Taoist sect had accommodated her in every possible way by creating different environments for her and giving her different benefits, Shui Rulin did not know how to refuse. Yet, she did not feel joyful. Deep in her heart, she still liked that quiet little valley and that tranquil life that stood aloof from worldly affairs. However, she could not go back to the way it was. Brother Qin, did you truly not escape from the 10,000 flower valley? Did you truly not escape? When Shui Rulin thought here, suddenly, her complexion changed slightly. With a flash of her body, she disappeared from the cave. Although Shui Rulin's current strength was also at the perfect void martial stage, her true strength was not much less than Ruo Ping Fairy, who was at the peak of the profound mysterious stage. The secret technique passed down from the immemorial era was too powerful. In a short few years, it had allowed Shui Rulin to undergo a complete transformation. Even if it were Qin Wushuang, if he were to see Shui Rulin now, most likely his jaw would drop. On the other hand, Qin Wushuang and Xian Wuji were chasing each other. In the end, they still maintained the same distance as before. Now, Xian Wuji had to admit that it was almost impossible to catch up to Qin Wushuang. However, Xian Wuji was unwilling to let Qin Wushuang get away with it. Suddenly, Qin Wushuang stopped in his tracks. He rolled his eyes and looked at the observant finger jade plate. Suddenly, he laughed. That Xian Wuji stopped? The observant finger jade plate showed that Xian Wuji had stopped. In less than 3 days, it would be impossible to say that he was completely exhausted. With Xian Wuji's strength, it would be impossible for him to not hold on for 3 days. For someone like Xian Wuji, it would be impossible for him to not have any pills to replenish his spiritual qi. If he were to use the tactic of dragging him down, without 3 or 5 months, Qin Wushuang would not consider dragging him down. However, this Xian Wuji had stopped. It seems that this Xian Wuji is not stupid. He should have guessed that it's not a secret that I have the observant finger jade plate. Everyone in the heavenly Luo Taoist sect knows about it. If Xian Wuji thought about it, perhaps he would have guessed it. However, for sure this Xian Wuji would not know about the fact that I have the spiritual power pearl. Even people of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect do not know about Senior Lu Xianluo's deep abyss treasure house. Certainly Xian Wuji would not know. Qin Wushuang thought quickly as he considered the gains and losses. Perhaps I should show some weakness to Xian Wuji and let him think that my spiritual qi is gradually running out? As Qin Wushuang thought about it this way, he immediately rejected this idea. It's only been 3 days, certainly Xian Wuji would not believe that I am running out of spiritual qi. On the other side of Xian Wuji, he was also thinking. I heard that this Qin Wushuang had made contact with Lu Xianlu. Lu Xianlu possessed vast knowledge and excelled at making all kinds of strange tools. I heard that Lu Xianlu had a miraculous observant finger jade plate that Luo Tongtian had pursued with all his might. Could it have fallen into the hands of this Qin Wushuang? It must be. Or else, how could this kid know that I am tracking him and keep a distance from me? When Xian Wuji thought here, he felt enlightened all of a sudden. Yes, it must be this way. Since this Qin Wushuang has this thing, he can also locate my position. However, I am at the peak of the common mysterious stage, and have pills that can be replenished at any time. How could this Qin Wushuang compete with me in terms of endurance? If I cannot catch up to him in 2 or 3 days, I will spend 10 days to half a month. If I cannot catch up to him in 10 days, I will spend 1 or 2 months. I don't believe that this kid can hold on all the time. When Xian Wuji thought here, his confidence increased again. He decided that he would use his own stage, endurance, and pills to drag Qin Wushuang to death. However, how could he know that Qin Wushuang did not need pills to replenish himself? That spiritual power pearl could collect the surrounding spiritual qi at any time. It would be endless and inexhaustible. While Xian Wuji carried this thought, he chased until the sun rose and set. Unconsciously, another half a month had passed. Counting with his fingers, it was less than a month away from the 10,000-year immortal pilgrimage pageant of the Karakoram immortal clan. Regardless of Xian Wuji or Qin Wushuang, although they could not do anything to each other, they could not break free from the defenses of this 10,000-flower valley. Feeling helpless, they could only wait. Each day, they sensed the murderous intentions of the divine beast and the hellish torment. In the past half a month, that 9-change celestial tiger had killed at least 3,000 martial artists. He was only 1 step away from that 9-change celestial tiger. Once he swallowed a few powerful primordial spirits, perhaps he could form a breakthrough instantly and enter the genuine Supreme Tao stage. Because of this reason, this 9-change celestial tiger had become even more tyrannical and murderous. This made all the remaining martial artists, including Qin Wushuang and Xian Wuji, feel incomparable pressure. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 666. Especially Xian Wuji, after close to 20 days of competition, he could not shorten the distance between him and Qin Wushuang. It made him feel a sense of defeat, a deep sense of defeat. His invisible tracking talisman could only maintain its precise effect for about 7 days. After 7 days, the tracking effect would weaken day by day. At the moment, the last trace of effect from the tracking talisman had completely vanished. It could be said that Xian Wuji had completely lost his target. Ever since Xian Wuji had stepped onto the path of martial arts, this was the greatest defeat he had ever experienced. It was also a defeat he had never imagined. In these dozen days, subtle changes had gradually occurred to Xian Wuji's mentality. Now, the effect of the tracking talisman has already passed. To catch up to this Qin Wushuang, unless I am extremely lucky, it would be impossible with my own power. Unless I enter the Supreme Tao stage and use the power of the Supreme Tao to chase and kill Qin Wushuang, certainly it would work. However, the Supreme Tao stage was not something that Xian Wuji could enter as he wished. It was not because he did not have enough talent or that he was not qualified. Instead, this Supreme Tao stage required an opportunity, a trigger point. Although Xian Wuji was at the peak of the common mysterious stage, at this moment, clearly it was not the time to trigger this opportunity. Regardless of Xian Wuji's confidence, he knew that it would be impossible for him to make a dash for the Supreme Tao stage in the next few days. Even with an optimistic estimation, he would need 1 to 3 years. Fortunately, for that Supreme Tao fruit, Qin Wushuang could not have consumed it before reaching the exquisite mysterious boundary stage. Even if he had consumed it, it would not have worked. Xian Wuji was extremely gratified about this point. After pondering over it for a long time, he could not find a good strategy. It would be hopeless to kill this Qin Wushuang and seize the supreme Tao fruit. Although Xian Wuji was unwilling to admit it, he must admit this point. Perhaps I should change my train of thought. Suddenly, Xian Wuji raised his brow. Yes, this 10,000 Flower Valley is the territory of the Amei Daoist sect. From beginning to end, this matter was a trap set by the Amei Daoist sect. It was to provide food for that divine beast. It means that disciples of the Amei Daoist sect must have participated in this 10,000 Flower Valley. As Xian Wuji deduced this way, suddenly, his eyes lit up. A vicious plan that was not open and upright emerged in his mind. A trace of a malevolent smile spilled from the corner of his mouth. Yes, we should do it this way. When Xian Wuji thought here, he stood up leisurely. It was very difficult to track down Qin Wushuang. However, to track a disciple of the Amei Daoist sect, as long as Xian Wuji was willing to put in some effort, it would be easy. Indeed, as Xian Wuji had expected, through his secret observation, on the next day, Xian Wuji discovered the figure of the female disciple of the Amei Daoist sect. Xian Wuji was not in a rush to greet her, but followed behind this female disciple. Xian Wuji was incredibly confident. When he followed the female martial artists of the Amei Daoist sect, he was not worried about getting exposed. After following them for half a day, Xian Wuji gradually understood that this female martial artist of the Amei Daoist sect had formed an intelligence network in this 10,000 Flower Valley. And the person they were looking for was Xian Wuji. This was beyond Xian Wuji's expectation. However, in the end, Xian Wuji was a person with great skill and courage. When he learned this point, not only was he not afraid, he had gained some confidence. Per his investigation, he knew that the person in charge of the Amei Daoist sect was called Ruo Ping Fairy. She was their senior sister. It seems that I must follow the vine to the melon and find this senior sister. Only then will it be easy. Since Xian Wuji had grasped some of the rules of the Amei Daoist sect, indeed, on the afternoon of the second day, he followed the vine to the melon and found the place where Ruo Ping Fairy had stayed. At this moment, clearly Ruo Ping Fairy was not in a good mood. There were only a little more than 20 days until the 10,000-year pilgrimage pageant. If she could not find the supreme Tao fruit, how could she, as the senior sister, lift her head before the chief? How could the chief take her to participate in the 10,000-year pilgrimage pageant? Therefore, her mood was getting worse each day. She wished she could flatten this 10,000 Flower Valley and dig 3 feet into the ground to find her. In these dozen days, each of the female martial artists sent out by the Amei Daoist sect had exerted all their efforts. However, in the end, they could not find any traces. Ruo Ping Fairy's hatred towards Shui Rulan also increased with each passing day. In the end, she felt that it was impossible for Shui Rulan to not be aware of the fruit thief. To break the defenses surrounding the stone platform, it would have caused a great commotion. Under the abyss, how could she not have sensed it? If Shui Rulan had activated the strongest defenses, how could the supreme Tao fruit have been lost? Therefore, the more Ruo Ping Fairy thought about it, the more she felt that Shui Rulan was scheming against her. Shui Rulan's talent and the degree of favor she received from the chief clearly indicated that even if Shui Rulan did not need the supreme Tao fruit, it would be a matter of course for her to enter the supreme Tao stage. However, regarding talent, foundation, and the degree of favor, she, Ruo Ping Fairy, was incomparable to Shui Rulan. Therefore, she desperately wanted to possess a supreme Tao fruit and make a dash for the supreme Tao stage as soon as possible. Naturally, she thought that Shui Rulan did not want her to enter the supreme Tao stage. It was Shui Rulan targeting her, the senior sister. It was a despicable method of competition. Shui Rulan, oh Shui Rulan, you relied on the chief's favor and acted so lawlessly. You allowed the fruit thief to steal the supreme Tao fruit. Before the chief, I will surely expose you. Ruo Ping Fairy criticized inwardly. Inwardly, she felt extremely annoyed. Just as her anger was at its peak, suddenly, a faint smile emerged from the thicket across from her. Ruo Ping Fairy, what is the matter that has made you so angry? Who is it? Ruo Ping Fairy's beautiful face lost all color. Someone was right before her, yet she was completely unaware. Who was this person? How could he be this powerful? For your information, to be able to make her, an elite warrior at the peak of the profound mysterious stage, realize it in hindsight, the strength of the other party would only be higher than her. Ruo Ping Fairy, I heard that in these dozen days you have been sending people to look for me. I only learned today that you have summoned me. Therefore, I have come to meet you. You! Ruo Ping Fairy only felt a blur before her eyes as a figure flashed to a giant tree before her like the wind. This person was wearing clothes as white as snow and appeared elegant and graceful. Between his brows, there was a few traces of domineering aura. However, it was not excessive and would easily give one a favorable impression. Exhilarating Wuji pays his respects to you, Fairy. Exhilarating Wuji cupped his hands lightly and said with a graceful smile. You are Exhilarating Wuji? Unconsciously, Ruo Ping Fairy pressed her hand on the sword hilt. Fairy, no need to panic. I do not mean any ill intentions. I believe you can also see through it. Exhilarating Wuji took 2 steps back with a smile and revealed a harmless expression. Exhilarating Wuji, you are truly Exhilarating Wuji? Ruo Ping Fairy twisted her brow and sized Exhilarating Wuji up seriously. One must say that the elegance and strength of this person before her had made her heart tremble. Across the entire illusion heavenly lake, such an elegant young master was one of a kind. Exhilarating Wuji's personality seemed to have a form of natural conquering temperament. He said with a smile, who would be willing to pretend to be Wuji? Who would be able to pretend to be me? Fairy, I am Exhilarating Wuji, guaranteed to be the real deal. Alright, I believe you are Exhilarating Wuji. Ruo Ping Fairy said with a bitter smile, however, since you know we are looking for you, you should know our purpose, right? Exhilarating Wuji laughed. Could it be you want to push Wuji into the belly of the divine beast? For such a cruel thing, how could you bear to do it? Needless to say, upon seeing Exhilarating Wuji's graceful manner, Ruo Ping Fairy had a good impression of him from the bottom of her heart. For the time being, she could not accept the idea of giving Exhilarating Wuji to the divine white tiger to eat. She chuckled and rolled her eyes with a charming smile. Exhilarating Wuji, you have calculated that I would not bear to do it, right? All right, let me ask you, when my divine beast's accompanying supreme Tao fruit was stolen, per the information, you are the most powerful and most likely to be the culprit. You cannot deny it. If you stole it, as long as you hand it over, I can promise to not offend you. Exhilarating Wuji laughed and said with a somewhat innocent expression, Fairy, I do hope that I stole it. Now, I can also offer it to you to please you. Unfortunately, even if I have such intentions, someone else has taken it before me. Don't you think it's repulsive? Ruo Ping Fairy rolled her eyes and said with a sweet smile, Exhilarating Wuji, could it be that you are lying to me because I am easy to talk to? If I speak half a word of lies, I am willing to be buried in the belly of the divine beast. Exhilarating Wuji said seriously, in fact, I ran to find you because I wanted to send this information to your ears as soon as possible to make you smile. Ruo Ping Fairy beamed with laughter and trembled. All right, I am truly smiling, you have succeeded. Exhilarating Wuji laughed. I am perfectly satisfied. If I can win your smile, this trip to the 10,000 Flower Valley was not in vain. One must say that although this Exhilarating Wuji appeared to be sanctimonious in ordinary times, when it came to playing tricks, he was extremely skillful. Although this Ruo Ping Fairy was the head disciple of the Amei Daoist sect and had seen a lot, in terms of experience, how could she be compared to Exhilarating Wuji? Coaxed by Exhilarating Wuji's few words, she almost lost her Tao heart. Alright, Xian Wuji, don't be so glib. If you are truly bringing me information with good intentions, then let me ask you, who stole the supreme Dao fruit? Xian Wuji walked a few steps forward with a smile. When Ruo Ping Fairy saw him walking towards her, her heart swayed as she immediately asked, "What are you doing?" Xian Wuji smiled and did not speak a word. He walked next to Ruo Ping Fairy and picked a pink flower from the side of the road. "Fairy, I am presenting you with borrowed flowers. Please accept this flower and allow me to tell you in detail." When Ruo Ping Fairy sensed Xian Wuji's gentle words and the masculine presence emitted by him, instantly her breathing became rapid. She must say that although this man was somewhat domineering and slippery, this little naughty feeling made Ruo Ping Fairy feel extremely comfortable. Red clouds flew across her face as she rolled her eyes at Xian Wuji. "Since you are giving me flowers, why don't you just put it on me?" Xian Wuji laughed. "In this case, I will accept deferentially." Xian Wuji had his own ideas for his pretentious actions. Or else, with his persevering personality, how could he have spent so much effort to please this Ruo Ping Fairy? To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. More chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 667. When the tender and beautiful flowers were inserted on the tip of her hair, it made Ruo Ping Fairy appear even more tender and beautiful. In the past, Ruo Ping Fairy had gone through a few trials of love. In fact, those men could not move her heart. At this moment, vividly, Ruo Ping Fairy had a form of desire to go through the trials of love with this Xian Wuji. Regardless of whether she could pass it or not, she would feel incredibly comfortable. The destructive power of this Xian Wuji was too great. "Fairy, at this moment, you are truly indescribably beautiful." Xian Wuji gave a long sigh. Combined with his eyes that were full of deep feelings, his eyes were burning like a burning flame. This Xian Wuji had not hesitated to use the beauty trap. Locked by this fiery gaze, Ruo Ping Fairy's Dao heart fell even further. She stirred the corner of her clothes with her index finger and said shyly, "Xian Wuji, can you stay away from me?" Xian Wuji took a step back gracefully and gave a light sigh. "I can't help myself because I appreciate you." "Alright, Fairy, please find a place that is hidden from the eyes and ears of others. Allow me to tell you the details, how about it?" "Xian Wuji, you are not thinking of harming me, right?" Ruo Ping Fairy asked stupidly. When she asked such a stupid question, it was enough to prove that half of this girl's mind had been captured by Xian Wuji. "Fairy, what if Wuji wants to harm you? For sure you would not be able to resist a sneak attack from the dark." "I don't know if you think so," Xian Wuji said with a domineering tone. When these words entered the ears of Ruo Ping Fairy, they held a different meaning. After some thinking, Ruo Ping Fairy felt that he was right. A moment ago, she had been in a daze. If Xian Wuji had launched a sneak attack, could she have resisted? Clearly, she could not. This way, most likely this Xian Wuji did not have any ill intentions. Thinking here, she said to Xian Wuji with a muddled mind, "Then come with me." Xian Wuji followed behind Ruo Ping Fairy and felt secretly joyful. It seemed that the first step of his strategy had succeeded. Next, it would depend on the cooperation of this Ruo Ping Fairy to see if he could succeed completely. Ruo Ping Fairy was extremely familiar with the boundaries of the 10,000 Flower Valley. Soon, they found a secluded place that was gloomy and remote. "Let's do it here. I guarantee that no one will come." When Ruo Ping Fairy said this, her ears suddenly turned hot and her cheeks heated up. She felt that her words were a little ambiguous, as if she was having an affair. "Fairy, I wonder if you trust me 100%? Xian Wuji asked straightforwardly. Ruo Ping Fairy was startled and said, "That depends on what you're talking about." "Alright, what I want to say is that initially, I did want to seize that supreme Dao fruit. It's because at that time, I thought that supreme Tao fruit was an object without an owner. I didn't know that the Amei Daoist sect was behind it. Xian Wuji appeared to be honest. His admission made Ruo Ping Fairy have a better impression of him out of nowhere. She nodded and said, "Yes, you're honest. I believe you 90% now." "Well, although 90% is not enough, it's a good start, isn't it?" Xian Wuji let out a carefree smile and said again, "However, I didn't expect that the so-called mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind." "What do you mean?" Ruo Ping Fairy was shocked. "When I arrived at the entrance of that cave, someone had already succeeded. I blocked his exit at the entrance of the cave. I thought I could trap him to death. Unexpectedly, this person was full of tricks and had hundreds of tricks. In the end, he still escaped. Just when I was about to leave the 10,000 Flower Valley, suddenly, a barrier knocked us all down." Xian Wuji's words were not exaggerated at all. Instantly, he recounted the situation that had happened in detail. When Ruo Ping Fairy heard up to this point, she believed him completely. "Hearing you say it this way, it does seem to be true. That person was able to get rid of your entanglement, extended his weapon, and sealed spiritual beasts. He is powerful. What is his background?" "His background?" Xian Wuji laughed. "Initially, I didn't recognize him. Only when he revealed his weapon, I realized it all of a sudden. This person was actually someone I knew. He is also a disciple of the Heavenly Emperor 8 Gates of the Xian Yuan Mound. Only, I don't know what kind of camouflage technique he used to hide his true appearance. This person is called Qin Wushuang, a disciple of the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan." Ruo Ping Fairy had some understanding of the Xian Yuan Mound. The Heavenly Emperor 8 Gates had a well-known reputation. Between each major forbidden spiritual zone, they all had some understanding of the mainstream powerhouses. "You are knowledgeable. Indeed, that Qin Wushuang is a disciple of the Qin clan. In fact, this person is not powerful. At most, he is at the perfect void martial stage. Only with some luck and the supreme Tao weapon, he was able to succeed this time. However, the gods have eyes and did not let this guy escape." Xian Wuji spoke with a tone filled with righteous indignation. Ruo Ping Fairy laughed. "Xian Wuji, that Qin Wushuang is a disciple of the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan. In fact, he is also a disciple of the Heavenly Emperor 8 Gate. Could it be that you guys are not as close as you and I? You are not here to deceive me, right?" Xian Wuji said seriously, "You only know one side of the story and not the other. This Qin Wushuang has never been on good terms with me. The Qin clan has always been the sworn enemy of the Xian clan. We fought to the death in the dark. Although this Qin Wushuang gnashed his teeth at me, I also do not have a good impression of him. Therefore, I am sincerely here to form an alliance with you to deal with that Qin Wushuang. You are not going to ask me to make another oath, right?" Ruo Ping Fairy looked at Xian Wuji with a face full of smiles. "All right, I will believe you. However, why are you helping me without any reason?" "I helped Fairy because of Fairy's reputation. Wuji admires Fairy. Secondly, I am duty-bound to deal with the Qin clan. The fact that the divine Tao fruit was obtained by the Fairy did not affect Wuji at all. If that Qin Wushuang gets it, it will definitely be bad news to the Xian clan." These were the honest words. Ruo Ping Fairy was bursting with joy when she heard them. She felt that this Xian Wuji was being honest with her. Clearly, these words were true. The Xian clan was the Heavenly Emperor Gate. It was natural and justified for them to be on guard against the previous Heavenly Emperor Qin clan. It was also natural for Xian Wuji to not want Qin Wushuang to get the supreme Tao fruit. "Yes, then I must remind you. When I get the supreme Tao fruit back, you will not get a share. However, since you helped me, I can open a corner of the defenses and let you leave the 10,000 Flower Valley." Ruo Ping Fairy spoke with a businesslike tone. Xian Wuji laughed. Fairy, am I this annoying? You are in such a rush to burn the bridge after crossing the river and drive me out? I am letting you live, what else do you want? Rua Ping Fairy revealed a faint smile. From the corner of her eyes, there was a trace of gentle flirtatious feeling. Can't I spend more time with you? Even if I could take a few more glances at your jade face, it would be my great fortune and the greatest reward for me. Ha ha, you always say such nice things to please me. However, I am really happy to hear it. Young Master Wuji, after hearing your words, I truly want to ask for your help. Please instruct me, Xian Wuji said. I wonder if young Master Wuji has the guts to cross the barrier of love with me? When Rua Ping Fairy spoke these words, her cheeks became hot and her heart also thumped wildly. She never thought that she could be this bold. Xian Wuji was moved inwardly as he was one step closer to his goal. Instantly, he revealed a calm smile. Fairy, you are not making fun of me, right? Humph, it's fine if you don't agree, just pretend I didn't say anything. Please calm down, what is this barrier of love? Xian Wuji asked while knowing the answer. Alright, it's fine to tell you. The barrier of love is the great barrier of our training. Each time we pass the barrier of love, we can increase our strength. For an exceptional man like you, if I can pass the barrier of love with you, certainly my strength will increase greatly. Ah, then wouldn't you be using me as a stepping stone? Yes, do you dare? Rua Ping Fairy stuck out her chest and asked. Are you not afraid of not passing this barrier of love? Suddenly, Xian Wuji laughed. It's good if you have the confidence to make me unable to pass. Then in the future, I will be yours. Rua Ping Fairy did not hesitate. After a moment of silence, Xian Wuji rubbed his palms and laughed. Fairy, I promise you. However, Fearless had already said that he would try his best to capture her heart. By that time, if you cannot pass the barrier of love and fall into a quagmire, you cannot blame me. Blame you for what? By that time, I will be yours, and I will love you dearly. Naturally, Rua Ping Fairy took Xian Wuji's arm with her charming eyes. Xian Wuji laughed inwardly. This Rua Ping Fairy was walking right into a trap by finding him to pass the barrier of love. When dealing with women, Xian Wuji had a few tricks up his sleeve. At the crucial moment, he could use some methods to take down this Rua Ping Fairy. By that time, he would steal the supreme Dao fruit and kill this Rua Ping Fairy in secret. No one would know Xian Wuji was playing such wishful thinking. Fairy, are you not afraid that your colleagues will secretly tell on you? Xian Wuji asked probingly. Tell on what? I am the leader of this 10,000 flower valley, wouldn't it be fine if I did not let them know? Wuji, I am telling you that there are 2 pieces of the supreme Dao fruit. If you can help me, perhaps I can consider giving you one. Xian Wuji chuckled and thought inwardly, give me one? What I want are 2 of them. How could one be enough? He could only speak these words inwardly. Yet, he said, Fairy, I do not care about the supreme Dao fruit. I am not boasting, in less than 3 years, I will certainly break through to the supreme Dao stage. Rua Ping Fairy liked Xian Wuji's confidence and domineering attitude. She looked at Xian Wuji's angular face with affection and for a time, she was stunned. Xian Wuji observed her words and body language and instantly found the right time. He held Rua Ping Fairy's face lightly and lowered his head to kiss her red lip. At the same time, Qin Wushuang looked at the observant finger jade plate in a daze. What was Xian Wuji doing? How come he was walking further and further away? For such an unforeseen event, not only did Qin Wushuang not feel relaxed, vividly, he had an extremely bad intuition. With his understanding of Xian Wuji, he was definitely not a person that would let things go easily. Could it be that this guy was brewing some other vicious scheme? To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please log on to www.chidian.com. More chapters, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 668. If it were any other opponent, perhaps Qin Wushuang would not have attached such importance to him. However, this Xian Wuji was not ordinary. Qin Wushuang had fully experienced it. Qin Wushuang would not dare to let down his guard. After observing for 2 or 3 days, Qin Wushuang realized that Xian Wuji had indeed lost track of him. Although Qin Wushuang did not know the reason, he knew that certainly this Xian Wuji had no other way. Or else, he would not have been this clueless. Perhaps that Xian Wuji was only tracking me by relying on some of his initial residual presence and superior tracking technique. However, after a long time, this tracking method would not work. Qin Wushuang could only explain it this way. However, Qin Wushuang did not feel relieved because of this. On the contrary, Qin Wushuang felt that now was the best time to refine the sky-pilfered pill. With my current strength, it's extremely difficult to break the defenses of the 10,000 Flower Valley. However, if I break through again and enter the perfect void martial stage, perhaps I can break the defenses of the 10,000 Flower Valley with my powerful stage after the spiritual light baptism. Now, I have one last supreme Tao 5 elemental talisman. The graceful spiritual bow and the supreme Tao shield are all trump cards. Only by increasing my strength to the strongest stage in a short time will I have the hope to get out of this predicament. After making this decision, Qin Wushuang started to search for a secluded place to start his refining journey. In fact, it would not take much time to refine the sky-pilfered pill. 2 hours would be enough. However, the breakthrough process would take 1 or 2 days. Most importantly, it would take 1 or 2 days for the breakthrough. It would be of utmost importance to consolidate the stage. As long as he could build the foundation in the first 1 or 2 days, it would not be a problem to consolidate the stage through battles. Now, the most important thing is to hold on for 1 or 2 days. Qin Wushuang's mind was as clear as a mirror. He also had the confidence that perhaps it would not be easy to hold on for 1 or 2 months. However, it would not be a problem to hold on for 1 or 2 days. However, for the sake of safety, Qin Wushuang still summoned all the sealed spiritual beasts. Sky-pilfered mole and Moon Palace jade hare were still in charge of monitoring the surroundings. This was especially true for Moon Palace jade rabbit, who was adept at using poison. While he was monitoring the surroundings, he could also be responsible for cleaning up a lot of miscellaneous fish that accidentally came in. 3 spirit beasts at the profound void martial stage were in charge of the second line of defense. If needed, help the outer defense line and clean up the small fries. The 3 perfect void martial stage beasts were in charge of the third line of defense. They were the rending earth devil sheep, the great desolate giant monkey, and the illusionary cloud divine dog. The third line of defense was actually the internal defense, and the 2 strongest peak grotto profound, one on the left and one on the right, were in charge of close defense. They were Qin Wushuang's protectors. If an extremely strong opponent were to invade, these 2 spirit beasts would be the most useful cornerstones. With such an arrangement, it could be said that Qin Wushuang had no hidden dangers. Qin Wushuang had already consumed the heaven-pilfering pill. It was just that it had always been in his body and had never been refined. At this moment, Qin Wushuang had no choice but to refine the heaven-pilfering pill. He had to raise his strength to the maximum in a short period of time. Only then would he have any hope of getting out of this predicament. The heaven-pilfering pill's pill properties were very strong. Qin Wushuang urged his spiritual energy and guided out the heaven-pilfering pill, starting to refine it in his body. Like a piece of solid ice, it slowly melted away under the melting of spiritual energy. The pill's effects started to slowly transmit throughout his body. After circulating a few small circulations, Qin Wushuang already clearly felt that the activity of this pill's effects in his body was slowly weakening. In other words, this pill's effects were already mostly absorbed by him. The weaker the pill's effects were, the more it was absorbed by his body. Different from consuming other life-saving medicinal pills, this heaven-pilfering pill's pill effects were not like those medicinal pills, where the entire body would feel comfortable after consuming it. After this heaven-pilfering pill started to take effect in his body, Qin Wushuang clearly felt that every part of his body was suffering torment. This heaven-pilfering pill was like a sharp blade, testing the blood vessels, tendons, bones, internal organs, and dantian in his entire body. The heaven-pilfering pill was not a life-saving medicinal pill after all. The pill's effects were very fierce. Putting it bluntly, the heaven-pilfering pill was a kind of opportunistic medicinal pill. Since it was an opportunistic medicinal pill, it must have its side effects. To use an inappropriate analogy, it was like pulling up seedlings to help them grow. The test on the body was obvious. Once the body could not withstand this kind of test, not only would the heaven-pilfering pill's medicinal effects be completely useless, it would even backfire on the body. Fortunately, Qin Wushuang's physical body had been tempered by the divine light and could be said to be very strong. No matter how this heaven-pilfering pill was considered, the impact on Qin Wushuang's physical body was not enough to make Qin Wushuang unable to withstand it. Qin Wushuang endured the impact of this pill's effect. Gradually, the initial pain and torment slowly subsided by a lot. 2 hours passed. Qin Wushuang's entire body began to emit dense mist. Sweat that was like blood seeped out of the surface of his skin. Qin Wushuang did not panic. He knew that this was the impurities of the heaven-pilfering pill being expelled from the body through various methods. The more impurities were expelled, the purer the pill he absorbed. Whoosh! After exhaling a long breath, Qin Wushuang opened his eyes. A profound spiritual light shot out from his eyes. He clearly felt that after being transformed by this heaven-pilfering pill, his dantian stage had unconsciously reached the peak of the profound void martial stage. Countless bursts of power kept converging towards his dantian and formed a violent impact on the last barrier of the profound void martial stage. The perfect void martial stage was already beckoning from nearby. Qin Wushuang neither rushed nor slowed as he guided these bursts of power to attack the barrier of his dantian again and again. Once, twice, countless times, Qin Wushuang could not even calculate. He only felt that the barrier was like a wall as cracks kept appearing and getting bigger. Suddenly, a wave of heat gushed out from his dantian. Whoosh! That barrier collapsed with a loud rumble. Various bursts of air rushed in madly and occupied the entire dantian. They started to nurture the primordial spirit and condense it. Perfect void martial stage. He had succeeded in such a simple way. Indeed, Qin Wushuang's training speed was in defiance of the natural order. For other martial artists, certainly it would be extremely difficult for them to break through at this level. One would have to experience many failures during the process. However, Qin Wushuang had succeeded in his first attempt. Of course, all of this had benefited from his powerful corporeal body stage. If he did not have this powerful corporeal body stage, regardless of anything, Qin Wushuang would not have been able to complete the breakthrough so smoothly. Because of his powerful corporeal body stage, each time Qin Wushuang broke through beneath the supreme Tao stage, it was easier than other genius martial artists. Of course, this ease was relative. If Qin Wushuang did not have powerful perception and talent, it would not have been this easy for him to break through. As he felt the powerful stage in his dantian, Qin Wushuang realized that his previous worries were unnecessary. The breakthrough guided by the sky-pilfering pill did not make his training stage appear lacking. On the contrary, his powerful corporeal body stage was enough to make up for some of the side effects brought by relying on the pill. It seems that the sky-pilfering pill is not as unbearable as I thought. Now, I only need some time to consolidate the perfect void martial stage and lay the foundation for this level. For this stage, it will take me 1 day to 3 days. Hopefully, that Xian Wuji will not come too soon. Currently, Qin Wushuang was not restraining his fear of the divine beast. It was because he knew that the divine beast was in a berserk stage. There were many martial artists in the 10,000 Flower Valley for him to hunt. For the time being, his situation would not be that bad. If he waited until almost all of the martial artists in the 10,000 Flower Valley were hunted, then Qin Wushuang would start to worry. At least for the next 1 or 2 days, this problem would not be the main problem. Another day had passed. Qin Wushuang felt incredibly good. Everything was proceeding in an orderly manner. At most, I will need another day and night to consolidate the foundation. By that time, even if Xian Wuji were to arrive, I can deal with him. I will not be afraid of him by fighting. Previously, Qin Wushuang was restraining his fear of Xian Wuji because the difference between them was too great. Currently, since he had increased his strength, the difference between the two of them had shrunk to a level where they could compete. Once he summoned the last 2 sealed spiritual beasts, Qin Wushuang was not worried about fighting a hard battle with Xian Wuji. Even if Xian Wuji cooperated with his supreme Dao weapon, he could gain the upper hand against a spiritual beast at the peak of the common mysterious stage. However, Qin Wushuang could summon 2 spiritual beasts at the peak of the common mysterious stage. With 2 against 1 plus Qin Wushuang, who possessed the supreme Dao weapon, and the other 2 spiritual beasts at the peak of the profound mysterious stage, 5 against 1, regardless of Xian Wuji's strength, it would be impossible for him to gain any advantage. In fact, 2 days and 2 nights were not a long time. If one did not consider the external factors, it would have passed in the blink of an eye. However, since he must consider the external factors, Qin Wushuang had to take out the observant finger jade plate to locate Xian Wuji's position every 2 hours. Fortunately, that Xian Wuji had maintained 1,000 miles distance from him. Although this distance could not be precise, it was enough to allow Qin Wushuang to gain the upper hand. The day of the second day still passed without any great disturbance. After 1 more night, Qin Wushuang would be able to consolidate his stage completely and move freely. On the other hand, for the sky-pilfered mole and moon palace jade hare on the outside, in these 2 days, they had maintained a high degree of vigilance. They would not let go of even the slightest movement of the grass in the wind. In these 2 days, occasionally some miscellaneous fish would break in. Moon Palace Jade Hare had quietly taken care of them with poison. However, tonight, Moon Palace Jade Hare had felt somewhat uncomfortable. The reason was simple. He had always felt that there seemed to be a powerful spiritual perception spying on him. "Mole, do you feel that something is wrong tonight?" Moon Palace Jade Hare could not refrain himself from asking. Sky Pilfered Mole also said with surprise, "You also have this feeling?" "Yes, it seems to be there and not, it seems that someone is spying on us. However, the most terrible thing is that I don't even know where this spiritual perception is coming from." "Then should we inform Master?" Sky Pilfered Mole felt that indeed, something was wrong. "Master will finish his solitary training tonight. Should we disturb him? We cannot be careless. What if it's the subordinate of that divine beast?" Sky Pilfered Mole was extremely cautious as he immediately sent his spiritual perception to the next layer of defense. Soon, he had passed the news to Qin Wushuang. In fact, the current Qin Wushuang had already entered the final stage. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 669. Being spied on by an unknown spiritual perception? When Qin Wushuang received this news, he was somewhat surprised inwardly. However, in the end, he remained calm as he spoke to the burning sky explosive tiger, a spiritual beast at the peak of the profound mysterious stage. "Fan Tian, go take a look. If you can't sense it, come back and report immediately." Although Sky Pilfered Mole and Moon Palace Jade Hare were quick-witted, in the end, they were only spiritual beasts at the transformation void martial stage. For the current situation, their strength was not enough. However, the burning sky explosive tiger was different. Being a spiritual beast at the exquisite mysterious boundary stage, he was extremely powerful in breaking through the void. With a dash, he disappeared into the void. Although the burning sky explosive tiger was a reckless spiritual beast, it did not mean that he did not have a meticulous side. For this spying, he knew clearly that he could not expose himself. Thus, he arrived at the outer defense circle with extreme caution. When Sky Pilfered Mole and Moon Palace Jade Hare saw the burning sky explosive tiger, they felt reassured inwardly. Do you still have that feeling of being spied on? Burning Sky Explosive Tiger asked. Yes, sometimes on and off, Sky Pilfered Mole said. Burning Sky Explosive Tiger nodded. This way, you guys are being spied on. After he had finished speaking, he did not speak anymore and only closed his eyes to hide. Suddenly, Burning Sky Explosive Tiger's body transformed into a torrential current. A burst of red light dashed out like a fire cloud from the sky and pounced towards the thicket on the west side. One only heard a wave of distorted collision sounds from inside. Next, Burning Sky Explosive Tiger pulled out a person from inside. This person was a female. Burning Sky Explosive Tiger spread out his spiritual perception completely. After he had patrolled around and did not discover any other abnormal movements, he said to Sky Pilfered Mole and Moon Palace Jade Hare, "You guys continue to monitor here. I will take this woman to see Master." Of course, this female martial artist was a female martial artist from the Amei Daoist sect. She also had the strength of the profound void martial stage. After being thrown before Qin Wushuang, she looked at Qin Wushuang with a ruthless expression. She seemed to gain the upper hand by a show of strength. "Who are you? You dare to catch me? Are you not afraid of my Amei Daoist sect?" Amei Daoist sect? Qin Wushuang revealed a leisurely smile. "You don't need to announce your name. What about the Amei Daoist sect? Who doesn't know that you are a female disciple of the Amei Daoist sect? Your Amei Daoist sect has the heart of a snake and scorpion. You have deliberately set up a trap and attracted martial artists from the world to come and die. For such a vicious plan, I even plan to announce it to the world." "You!" The female cultivator's eyes shot out a vicious resentment as she stared at Qin Wushuang, as if she wanted to see through Qin Wushuang. Qin Wushuang was extremely calm. "Look at me some more. Although I don't like to make a move on women, my subordinates are all rough people. If they were to make a move on you, I would not stop them." The female cultivator looked at the two ferocious Burning Sky Explosive Tigers and purple-eyed golden bulls and couldn't help but tremble. She knew that she had encountered a fierce opponent and didn't dare to be stubborn. He only muttered, "Who exactly are you?" "Don't worry about who I am. Tell me, when did you find us?" Qin Wushuang's tone was cold. "Before I answer your question, let me give you a friendly reminder. If I find out that you're lying, you know the consequences. By that time, don't blame my subordinates for not knowing how to take care of you." When the female cultivator saw Qin Wushuang speaking these words as if he were having a casual conversation, she knew that this person was not easy to deal with. Although there was resentment in her eyes, she did not dare to contradict him. "I just found you guys." "Just found you? Whose order did you follow? In your Amei Daoist sect, in the 10,000 Flower Valley, who is the leader?" "It's senior sister. Sir, although you are strong, certainly you cannot win against my senior sister. If you know what's good for you, let me go. Or else, senior sister will bring Tiger Saint to kill her way here. This way, you already reported the situation here to your senior sister." Qin Wushuang asked with a cold tone. "What if I did? Then I'm sorry, you must pray for yourself." Qin Wushuang's expression turned cold. You dare to kill me? Kill you? Killing you would dirty my hands," Qin Wushuang said with a disdainful tone. "Since you like to pass information, then please come with me. If I cannot walk out of this 10,000 flower valley, it's good that you will be buried with me. Sweat emerged on the forehead of the female cultivator as she swore. You are shameless. Shameless? It seems that the Amei Daoist sect is even more shameless, right? Qin Wushuang said coldly. Let me ask you again, what is the name of your senior sister? Is she called Little Can? Little Can? You mean senior sister Ruo Can? She is not the senior sister, she is the third. Senior sister is Ruo Ping Fairy. Clearly, the tone of this female cultivator had softened. Ruo Ping Fairy, ha, your Amei Daoist sect is so despicable, yet you dare to call yourself a fairy. Indeed, you have insulted the word fairy. Alright, now you also know that if you want to live, you must think about how to help me walk out of this 10,000 flower valley. Or else, if I cannot walk out, don't think about being free. That female cultivator said urgently, to walk out of the 10,000 flower valley, you must open the defenses of the 10,000 flower valley. Only senior sister and junior sister have the authority to do this. The others are not qualified to open it. Then please lure your senior sister here. If your senior sister falls into my hands, of course I have a way to let her open the mechanism. Impossible. Fear emerged from the eyes of that female cultivator as she kept shaking her head. Betraying my fellow disciples, even if I am alive, the higher-ups of the Taoist sect will not let me go. And it will also implicate my family in the secular world. Even if you kill me, I will not do this. This Amei Daoist sect was still trying to implicate others. Although this move was vicious, it did have a great deterrent effect to the disciples. Qin Wushuang said lightly, Then tell me where your senior sister is. It's the same if I go find her. That won't do either. I've already contacted eldest senior sister. If you go find her, she will certainly know that I leaked the secret. This is also betraying her fellow disciples. Qin Wushuang said coldly, This won't do, that won't do. This way, you would rather die than submit? The expression of that female cultivator turned gloomy. Just kill me. Although Qin Wushuang hated people of the Amei Daoist sect, he would not go to the extent of killing indiscriminately. Although this female cultivator was detestable, it would be useless to kill her now. If he used cruel methods to extort a confession, it would not appear open and candid. Then, there was only one remaining method, the divine venomous puppet technique. To Qin Wushuang, this move had never failed. Regardless of their strength, once they were manipulated by the divine venomous insect, they would willingly submit to Qin Wushuang, the one who had planted the venomous insect. They would follow him wholeheartedly. Previously, Qin Wushuang had controlled that Black Panther, Ying Long, and the people of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect at the Xian Yuan Mound. Later on, he had used this method to control Wu Dingyuan of the 100 Swords sect under the Black Dead Sea of the Floating Snow House. After entering the 10,000 Flower Valley, he had used the same method to control Luo Zhong of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect. Although this female cultivator had good strength, before the divine venomous insect technique, she was powerless to resist. She only felt a burst of confusion. When she opened her eyes again and regained consciousness, she had completely become Qin Wushuang's divine venomous puppet. She walked before Qin Wushuang and said, Master, speak, what is your name, and where is Ruo Ping Fairy? My name is Ruo Tong. Most likely Head Senior Sister is rushing here. Recently, Head Senior Sister has sent a message to all disciples of the 10,000 Flower Valley to track a person called Qin Wushuang. She said that this Qin Wushuang had stolen the supreme Dao fruit. Qin Wushuang's mind trembled inwardly. Then, he said with a light smile, Then do you know who I am? Master, I still don't know your name. I am Qin Wushuang. Ah! Ruo Tong was incredibly surprised. Then, she said with some fear, Master, everything was ordered by Head Senior Sister. It has nothing to do with me. Yes, that Ruo Ping fairy. How did she know that I had taken the supreme Tao fruit? Qin Wushuang was more curious about this question. In his opinion, Xian Wuji was the only one who knew he had stolen the supreme Tao fruit. Normally, Xian Wuji would not have spread the news that he had taken the supreme Tao fruit from him. However, if Xian Wuji had not spread the news, how could the people of the Amei Daoist sect know that he had acquired the supreme Tao fruit? Qin Wushuang's head was full of questions. Ruo Tong immediately said, "In the beginning, head senior sister suspected that Xian Wuji, the son of the Heavenly Emperor of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, had taken the supreme Tao fruit. However, in recent days, she sent orders through her spiritual perception to ask everyone to track Master. As for how she knew, she did not explain the reason. However, head senior sister is the person in charge of the 10,000 Flower Valley. If she did not tell us, we would not have dared to ask." Qin Wushuang muttered to himself irresolutely for a moment. He knew that this Ruo Tong had been manipulated by the divine venomous insect and would not have lied to him. This way, Ruo Ping Fairy must have learned everything through some secret channel. This is a headache. If the Amei Daoist sect has locked onto me as their main target, the threat of the divine beast will be infinitely magnified. In comparison, perhaps Xian Wuji's threat is even more insignificant. No, I must find a way to get out of the valley before the Amei Daoist sect. Qin Wushuang knew that he could not sit and wait for death. Now that the Amei Daoist sect had locked onto him, naturally the pressure on his back had increased abruptly. Just where is the supreme Tao defense of the 10,000 Flower Valley activated? Ruo Tong shook her head and revealed a somewhat confused expression. For this, only head senior sister and junior sister know. We are not at a high enough level. Junior sister? How come there is a junior sister? Qin Wushuang frowned. What's going on with junior sister? Ruo Tong said, Junior sister has only entered the sect for a few years and has been training next to Tiger Saint. Receiving the nurturing of the Supreme Tao presence, her strength has increased rapidly. What is her name? Suddenly, Qin Wushuang felt apprehensive inwardly, as if he had guessed something. Junior sister is called Ruolan. As soon as these words were spoken, Qin Wushuang felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Opening his mouth, for a time, he did not know what to say. Inwardly, he only felt endless disappointment. Shui Rulan, that young girl who was as pure as water and as quiet as an orchid, in the end had fallen into the tiger's den of the Amei Daoist sect. For this matter, although Qin Wushuang had expected it, in the end, he was unwilling to accept it. Now that it had been confirmed, he still felt incredibly pained. Thinking about how a pure and innocent young girl like Shui Rulan, who stood aloof from worldly affairs, had been infected by the Amei Daoist sect, what kind of terrifying scene would she become? This would definitely be the destruction of the most beautiful thing in the world. Now, Qin Wushuang's hatred towards the Amei Daoist sect had reached its peak. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 670. Master, what's wrong? Ruo Tong was a meticulous person. She could not help but ask when she saw Qin Wushuang's strange expression. Qin Wushuang gave a bitter smile and shook his head. I'm fine. Is your junior sister also in the valley? Yes, she is training in the cave of Honored Tiger Warrior. Training in that cave? Are you sure? Qin Wushuang asked with disbelief. Yes, Ruo Tong said with a determined tone. Then, she said with a strange tone, Master, could it be you are not the one that picked the Supreme Tao fruit? It's me. Qin Wushuang did not hide it. That's strange. How come junior sister did not discover Master? She is under the abyss in front of the stone platform where the Supreme Tao fruit is. There was also a trace of confusion in Ruotong's tone. Under that abyss? Qin Wushuang was greatly shocked. Of course, he had a deep impression of that abyss. At that time, he never thought that there was someone under the abyss. Yes, Master, if it's true that you picked the supreme Tao fruit, you are truly lucky. Junior sister is training there. At the same time, she is in charge of controlling the strongest defense. If she had activated the strongest defense, even if you are an elite warrior of the supreme Tao, it would be difficult to evade the attack. However, for some unknown reason, junior sister did not activate that strongest attack. When we asked senior sister, she did not explain why. Ruo Ping Fairy had confronted Shui Rulan. She did not believe Shui Rulan's words at all. Thus, of course, she would not explain for Shui Rulan. Of course, she did not have the guts to fabricate rumors to hurt Shui Rulan. Then at this moment, is your junior sister still inside that abyss? Qin Wushuang could not help but ask. Ruo Tong said with astonishment, Master, you are not thinking about dealing with junior sister, right? Qin Wushuang remained calm and collected. Ruo Tong shook her head. If you are going to deal with senior sister, I would not mind. However, junior sister is truly a good and innocent person. Besides, although she is only at the perfect void martial stage, if she activates the strongest defense, it would be difficult for you to gain any advantage. Qin Wushuang shook his head. You don't have to say anything. I've already made up my mind. Just as Ruodong was about to say something, she suddenly realized that there was a communication signal on the jade tablet. She said, Master, it's senior sister. Just pretend that I don't exist. Qin Wushuang waved his hand. Ruodong activated the communication jade tablet. Eldest senior sister, are you here? And, junior sister Ruodong, you did well this time. I'll be right there. Keep an eye on him. Don't alert the enemy. Ruotong said, All right, eldest senior sister. You'd better come quickly. I'm afraid they'll leave. Just stay there and keep watch. Even if they leave, don't try to stop them. Do you understand? Ruo Ping Fairy sounded very confident. All right. After cutting off the spiritual perception connection, Ruo Tong turned to look at Qin Wushuang. Master, senior sister seems to be coming. If she comes, it's very likely that she'll bring Lord Tiger Saint with her. When she mentioned that 9-change celestial tiger, Qin Wushuang felt incredibly helpless. With this monstrous divine beast, even if Qin Wushuang had thousands of strategies, he could only make one choice. That was to escape without a trace. In the face of absolute power, all plans and strategies were useless. Regardless of the best strategy, it would not reduce the gigantic gap between him and a divine beast at the 8th transformation Supreme Tao stage. Humph, she has a good plan. Since she brought the divine beast here, could it be that I should wait for her here? I'll just play hide and seek with her. Qin Wushuang waved his hand and instructed, all spiritual beasts return to their positions and leave immediately. As soon as he gave the order, all the spiritual beasts on the outside returned. Qin Wushuang said, The Amei Daoist sect has already locked on to me. It seems that our future days will not be easy. All of you return to the seal. Fortunately, through hard work, Qin Wushuang had already consolidated his perfect void martial stage. He decided that regardless, he must return to that cave and see whether Shui Rulan was there or not. Although Qin Wushuang could not change the fact that Shui Rulan had become a disciple of the Amei Daoist sect, regardless, Qin Wushuang would not sit by and do nothing. Regardless of Shui Rulan's current situation, he must see her first. Wuji, do you think Qin Wushuang was the one Ruotong had detected? If that Qin Wushuang is truly as powerful as you say, with Ruodong's strength, how could she detect him without being discovered? Ruo Ping Fairy asked with a lack of confidence. She did not reveal the existence of Xian Wuji to any of her colleagues. With Xian Wuji's strength, it would be easy for him to hide from the other disciples of the Amei Daoist sect. Fairy, that Qin Wushuang has summoned spiritual beasts. According to my information, those spiritual beasts also vary in strength. What junior sister Ruodong observed must be the weaker spiritual beasts. Since those spiritual beasts are nearby, certainly Qin Wushuang is not far away. Regardless of whether he is or not, we will not suffer losses if we go take a look. Wuji, then I will listen to you. By the way, should we ask Tiger Saint to go with us? Ruo Ping Fairy asked. Fairy, it's not that I am boasting, but if we find that Qin Wushuang, as long as you are in the formation, I promise that Qin Wushuang will not get away. Why use a butcher's knife to kill a chicken? Deep inside Xian Wuji's heart, he was unwilling to deal with that divine beast. Not to mention, his ambition was not limited to just one supreme Tao fruit. He wanted to have both of them. In these few days, Xian Wuji had used all kinds of schemes to coax this Ruo Ping Fairy. He only lacked the last line of defense to conquer. He was thinking about how to take down this Ruo Ping Fairy. By that time, he would coax Ruo Ping Fairy to open the defenses of the 10,000 Flower Valley. As soon as he got out of the valley, he would immediately kill this woman. Anyways, in this 10,000 Flower Valley, no one knew that Xian Wuji was colluding with this Ruo Ping Fairy. No one would know about this matter. As long as he did it cleanly, who would know the inside story? Soon, with one in the light and one in the dark, these two had arrived at Ruotong's location. However, at this moment, Qin Wushuang was long gone. Where is he? Ruo Ping Fairy asked. Senior sister, he already left. Since Ruotong had received Qin Wushuang's instructions, naturally she knew how to deal with this senior sister. Inwardly, she already had an excuse to deal with her. Left? When did they leave? Ruo Ping Fairy asked with frustration. They just left not long ago, at most less than an hour ago. Senior sister, if you had come one step earlier, surely you would have met them. I have a premonition that most likely this group of people were the ones that stole the supreme Tao fruit. Perhaps the fruit thieves have already swallowed the supreme Tao fruit. They are in solitary training to refine the supreme Tao fruit. Ruo Tong added oil to the fire, and this caused Ruo Ping Fairy to reveal an unsightly expression. Refining the supreme Tao fruit? Unless he is already at the exquisite mysterious boundary stage, or else, it would be wishful thinking for him to refine the supreme Tao fruit. Alright, there is nothing for you to do here. Go and regroup with the other disciples. I will search for any traces in the surrounding area. Now, Ruo Ping Fairy was going to send away the miscellaneous people to create an environment for her and Xian Wuji. After all, it would be inconvenient to have other disciples present. Ruo Tong was eager to leave under the eyes of this Ruo Ping Fairy. It would be fine for other people, but before this senior sister, she was also afraid of revealing any flaws. Upon hearing the words of her senior sister, she nodded and said, Senior sister, then you must be careful. I see that this group of people is not simple. Ruo Ping Fairy gave a disdainful smile. Inwardly, she thought that with your little strength, of course you would be terrifying. I am at the exquisite mysterious boundary stage, plus Wuji, the strongest existence beneath the supreme Tao stage. Would I be afraid of that kid? She waved her hand and said, Go and regroup with your disciples. After Ruo Tong had left, Xian Wuji walked out from the dark. He fixed his voice and said, Fairy, this is definitely a place where Qin Wushuang had appeared. I am too familiar with this presence. This Qin Wushuang is not a fledgling. How could he have left his presence here? Ruo Ping Fairy had a trace of doubt. That kid is smart. However, for anyone who stays in a place for a long time, it's impossible to completely eliminate their presence. And I just happen to have an exclusive method to confirm this presence. If I've guessed correctly, he trained here. Or else, the presence would not have been this rich. This guy has some guts. Under such circumstances, he still has the mind to train. Ruo Ping Fairy could not help but ask, Wuji, could he have truly refined the supreme Tao fruit? Impossible, with that Qin Wushuang's strength. It's impossible for him to have refined the supreme Tao fruit. I think at most he is at the perfect void martial stage. How could he have refined the supreme Tao fruit? Xian Wuji denied this possibility flatly. Wuji, how about we ask the great Tiger Saint to step out? As soon as the great Tiger Saint opens his spiritual perception, how could he not catch up to that Qin Wushuang? Naturally, Xian Wuji would not allow such a thing to happen. If that divine beast stepped out, would there be any chance for Xian Wuji to get his hands on the supreme Tao fruit? Clearly, it would be impossible. To seize the supreme Tao fruit, he must join hands with Ruo Ping Fairy. At the moment, he said, Fairy, don't worry, this Qin Wushuang did not go far. If we follow him all the way, there will be some traces. All right, Wuji, I will listen to you. Qin Wushuang moved forward quickly. In the afternoon of the second day, he took a detour and arrived near that cave. Now, the area around the cave was in a mess. Clearly, that divine beast had not returned. Qin Wushuang did not dare to act rashly and alert the snake. When he arrived at the entrance of the cave, he spread out his spiritual perception to make sure it was safe. Then, he slowly stepped in. For some unknown reason, although he knew it was safe now, Qin Wushuang's heartbeat could not refrain from speeding up. Was Shui Rulin truly inside that abyss? Although he knew that Ruo Tong would not lie, he was still worried about personal gains and losses. After not seeing her for a few years, was Shui Rulin still that innocent young girl like an orchid in a deep valley? Was she still that kind-hearted young girl? Everything seemed so uncertain. The Amei Daoist sect was too terrifying. Under such environment, Qin Wushuang did not dare to imagine how Shui Rulin had been transformed. When he arrived at the entrance of the abyss, Qin Wushuang was stunned. Clearly, that abyss was much shallower. Qin Wushuang initiated his spiritual perception to probe and found that there was no one in this abyss. Where did Shui Rulin come from? Could it be that Ruo Tong was lying? Qin Wushuang denied this possibility. Being a puppet controlled by the divine venomous insect, it was impossible for Ruo Tong to lie to her master. Then, there was only one possibility: Shui Rulin had already come out of the abyss. While he was thinking, suddenly, Qin Wushuang moved his spiritual perception. Outside of this cave, there came a wave of footsteps. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 671. Feeling apprehensive inwardly, Qin Wushuang had already floated to the entrance of the cave like lightning. He fixed his gaze to look outside and saw a young girl dressed in snow-white clothing. Barefooted, she frowned slightly as if there was a knot in her heart that could not be untied between her brows. He saw the expression under this stunning appearance as if she was holding her heart. Inwardly, Qin Wushuang felt pain. It was her, it was really her. Four eyes met. Shui Rulin's gaze was still as pure and bright as a few years ago. Only, between her brows, there was less of the usual calmness and tranquility. Instead, there was a trace of faint sadness. This was where Qin Wushuang felt the pain. Thinking back to the past, this Shui Rulin was carefree. Even when she talked about her grandfather's death, her tone was calm and natural. It was a state of mind that had not been polluted by the secular world. However, at this moment, this kind of sadness and distress had destroyed this tranquil and natural beauty. From Qin Wushuang's point of view, this was an incomparably cruel injury. Brother Qin, I knew that you would come back in the end. Shui Rulin revealed a light smile. You, Rulin, you knew it was me? Qin Wushuang was completely stunned. That faint trace of sadness between Shui Rulin's brows had been swept away. Instead, it was replaced by a somewhat shy joy. "Brother Qin, follow me quickly." Shui Rulin waved her hand. Qin Wushuang did not doubt her and followed behind Shui Rulin. After walking for a while, they arrived at a rather remote place. Finally, Shui Rulin's mood had calmed down slightly. Inside her pure eyes, there was still a trace of uncontrollable joy. She said while stuttering, "Brother Qin, I thought I would never see you again in this lifetime. Rulin, you are still a disciple of the Amei Daoist sect." Qin Wushuang sighed helplessly. "Rulin, the actions of the Amei Daoist sect are truly unflattering." Shui Rulin's complexion dimmed. "Brother Qin, you know everything?" "Rulin, when I saw the Amei Daoist sect's scheme to deal with these foreign martial artists, I truly did not want to associate you with the Amei Daoist sect. Truly, the Amei Daoist sect is not suitable for you. I only hope that you'll always be that innocent girl from Bull Valley, standing aloof from worldly affairs and living a carefree life." Shui Rulin was about to cry. She gently bit her lips and kept shaking her head. "Big Brother Qin, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Big Brother Qin, Rulin knows that you're a good person." However, Rulin really didn't know. Rulin didn't know about all of this beforehand. "Big Brother Qin, do you trust me?" Seeing Shui Rulin like this, Qin Wushuang's heart softened. He had met countless people and knew that Shui Rulin wouldn't lie. He sighed and said, "Rulin, I didn't mean to blame you. I only feel that the actions of the Amei Daoist sect have violated the natural order." There was a trace of confusion on Shui Rulin's expression. "Brother Qin, teacher brought me to the Amei Daoist sect. She treated me well and always accommodated me. By the way, Brother Qin, that day at the Bull Valley, why did you leave?" Qin Wushuang shook his head with a wry smile. "That woman that day, was she your master?" "That's right. Later on, I asked Master about your whereabouts. She scolded me and told me not to think about you. She said that you were greedy for life and afraid of death and had already run away. Big Brother Qin, Rulin knows that you are not such a person. Teacher treated me well because she didn't want me to miss Big Brother Qin. She said it deliberately. However, Grandpa once told Rulin that when you have someone in your heart, the more you want to forget him, the easier it will be to remember him. Big Brother Qin, don't you think so?" Shui Rulin's tone appeared somewhat infatuated. After a few years of change, Shui Rulin was still as innocent as before. Only, she had lost some of the shyness she had when they first met and gained some joy after reuniting. This joy made Shui Rulin speak the words that she would not dare to speak normally. "Rulin, you." When Qin Wushuang heard Shui Rulin's words all of a sudden, he was rather surprised. He didn't expect that after so many years, Shui Rulin had missed him so much. Qin Wushuang cared about Shui Rulin purely out of concern for beautiful things. He did not wish for Shui Rulin to be led astray by the Amei Daoist sect. He never expected that Shui Rulin would keep him in her mind constantly. Qin Wushuang was not an idiot. Of course, he could hear the deep affection hidden within Shui Rulin's indifferent words. "Big Brother Qin, I know that you are worried that I would be led astray by the Amei Daoist sect's ideology. You are scared that I would become a sinister and vicious executioner, right? Rulin, I only want to say that life at the Bull Valley is the most suitable for you. Any other kind of idea that tries to change your life is persecuting you. In my eyes, you will always be that secluded orchid at the Bull Valley, that kind-hearted doctor." Shui Rulin was in a daze as she mumbled, "But, Bull Valley, I cannot go back. Those mountain people, those people are all dead. Big Brother Qin, I cannot go back to the Bull Valley. Every night, I dream that I am brewing medicine at the Bull Valley, picking herbs in the mountain. However, when I wake up from my dream, I am in this icy cold abyss. Big Brother Qin, teacher is good to me. However, the life here is not what I want to choose. Rulin, if you want to go back to the Bull Valley, I can take you away," Qin Wushuang said. Shui Rulin's expression changed as she shook her head in fear. No, big brother Qin, I don't want you to take me away. I will not go back to the Bowl Valley. Suddenly, Shui Rulan's expression was extremely agitated. Her eyes were full of fear. Rulan, you! Qin Wushuang walked forward. However, Shui Rulan gave a sharp cry and took a few steps back in fear. Big brother Qin, don't come close to me. Qin Wushuang shook his head helplessly and took 2 steps back. Rulan, I don't mean any harm. Big brother Qin, I. Shui Rulan shook her head dispiritedly and did not say anything. Suddenly, she said, Big brother Qin, go quickly. Leave this 10,000 flower valley, I will take you away. Rulan, you are not going with me? Qin Wushuang could not help but ask. Big brother Qin, don't ask any more. Follow me, hurry. Suddenly, Shui Rulan's expression was filled with fear. She urged him excitedly and rushed towards the north with Qin Wushuang. When they arrived near a pile of messy stone forest, Shui Rulan said, Big brother Qin, I will open the mechanism now. You will fly towards the north and soon you will escape from the 10,000 flower valley. Hurry! That divine beast has already returned. Inwardly, Qin Wushuang was moved. Shui Rulan had already entered the messy stone forest. After a moment, Shui Rulan ran out again. Big brother Qin, I have already opened an exit to the north. Hurry and go. Qin Wushuang said, Rulan, are you really going to stay at the Amei Daoist sect? Shui Rulan's expression was somewhat frustrated, yet she nodded resolutely. Big brother Qin, I am sorry, I cannot go with you. Teacher is very good to me. Rulan. Qin Wushuang realized that he was speechless. If it was possible, he wanted to use brute force. Yet, he could not. If it was Shui Rulan's choice, what else could he say? Big brother Qin, if you don't go and senior sister finds out that I let you go, the chief will kill me. Shui Rulan urged him. While Qin Wushuang was still somewhat hesitant, Shui Rulan made up her mind and turned around to enter the stone forest. In a few jumps, she had disappeared. Like a ghost, her white figure moved at an incredibly fast speed. Qin Wushuang was dumbstruck. Up to this moment, he still could not believe that the young girl who did not know how to train had trained to such a stage in just a few short years. However, everything was seen with his own eyes. Inwardly, Qin Wushuang felt extremely uncomfortable and frustrated. Knowing that Shui Rulan was forcing him to leave, he could only adjust his mood and run rapidly towards the north. He initiated the purple cloud in yang wings and rushed out of the 10,000 flower valley in one breath. Initially, he should be happy to escape with his life. However, Qin Wushuang could not feel the slightest bit of excitement. When he thought of Shui Rulan's choice, his hatred towards the Amei Daoist sect had emerged. When Shui Rulan saw that Qin Wushuang had left, she jumped out from the messy stone forest. She looked at the north with infatuation and tears streamed down her face. Inwardly, she mumbled, Big brother Qin, don't blame me. Teacher once told me that if I fell in love with any man in the world, teacher would kill him by any means. I don't want to harm you. If teacher knew that I had left with you, she would surely find you with her vast knowledge. Big brother Qin, would you understand my thoughts? Shui Rulan had grown up in the Bowl Valley and was incredibly innocent. Qin Wushuang was almost the first foreign man she had come in contact with. Each of his movements had greatly influenced Shui Rulan. Especially when Qin Wushuang had rushed to the Tortoise King Mountain for the mountain people, it had left a great impression on Shui Rulan. Then, when Qin Wushuang had returned from the Tortoise King Mountain, he had saved her due to various reasons. The image of Qin Wushuang had become more profound in her heart. Until she was brought to the Amei Daoist sect, everything made her feel suffocated in the unfamiliar environment and unfamiliar faces. She felt a deep sense of fear and rejection. She realized that in this world, the only person she missed was Qin Wushuang, whom she had met by chance. The yearning that had accumulated over time had become lovesickness. Unconsciously, the roots of love had been planted. Especially for an innocent girl like Shui Rulin, once she had fallen in love, she would be unswerving. She could not refrain from thinking about Qin Wushuang in all aspects. The moment when Qin Wushuang had barged into the cave, Shui Rulin's lovesickness had been completely ignited. How could she have opened the defenses to kill Qin Wushuang? Even if it was a stranger, with Shui Rulin's personality, she would not have opened the defenses. She did not even have the heart to kill the murderer of those mountain people of the Bowl Valley, not to mention other people. Of course, she could not speak these words to Qin Wushuang. She did not want to cause a psychological burden to Qin Wushuang. Therefore, she could only say that her teacher was good to her. In fact, from beginning to end, Shui Rulin had never integrated into the Amei Daoist sect and never wanted to. While she was lost in thought, suddenly, a burst of light shot from behind her. Ruo Ping Fairy's body dropped before the messy stone forest. When she saw Shui Rulin's dumbstruck expression, she could not help but ask, "Junior sister, what are you doing here?" After she had asked this question, suddenly the expression of Ruo Ping Fairy had changed. She walked into the messy stone forest at a fast pace. Immediately, her expression changed drastically as she shouted, "Junior sister, you opened the defenses on the north side?" Shui Rulin did not deny it and only nodded lightly. She did not like this Ruo Ping Fairy. Ever since the first day she had entered the Amei Daoist sect, this senior sister seemed to be extremely polite to her. In fact, she would find trouble with her for no reason, and it made her dislike her. Do you know what you are doing? Shui Rulin, you rely on the fact that the chief dotes on you and you are out of control? You let go of the fruit thief? Ruo Ping Fairy's expression was somewhat distorted. Xian Wuji was hiding in the dark. When he heard these words, the anger in his heart rose. For the time being, he did not care whether he was invisible or not as he scuttled out. What? That kid Qin Wushuang ran away? Ruo Ping Fairy said angrily. Shui Rulin, just wait and see how the chief will take care of you. Wuji, let's go inform the divine beast and chase after Qin Wushuang. We must not let him get away. Xian Wuji said urgently, why inform the divine beast? By the time we inform him, that guy will have already disappeared without a trace. Fairy, I will go after him first. After he had finished speaking, he rolled in the sky and disappeared among the clouds. It's still only 4 chapters, I can't reach 5. Tomorrow, I will continue to search for the status. I will finish the mission this month. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 672. When Qin Wushuang left the 10,000 Flower Valley, he made some calculations inwardly. He had stayed at this 10,000 Flower Valley for almost a month. It was only about half a month away from the 10,000-year pilgrimage pageant. After flying for a while, suddenly Qin Wushuang remembered something. Jiufang Yunfei is still at the 10,000 Flower Valley. Qin Wushuang suddenly remembered Jiufang Yunfei and immediately thought, if the defenses of the 10,000 Flower Valley are not opened, Jiufang Yunfei will be in great danger. Just when he was in a difficult situation, Qin Wushuang discovered that there was movement from his communication jade plate. Qin Wushuang was greatly astonished. He had not used the communication jade plate for a long time. Ever since the incident with the immortal leaf flying boat, the communication jade plate had been in a sealed state and could not be used. At this moment, when there was sudden movement, naturally Qin Wushuang felt somewhat surprised. After it was activated, it was the voice of second honored warrior Qin Yunran. Wushuang, where are you? Qin Yunran went straight to the point. Qin Wushuang said with a bitter smile, Second Chief, I am on the way. You have already arrived at the Karakoram Immortal Clan? Haha, yes. Taichung and the other 3 are all here. You are the only one missing from the Qin clan. When Qin Yunran learned that nothing had happened to Qin Wushuang, he was in a great mood. Second Chief, just what is going on? Is someone playing a prank? Qin Wushuang could not refrain himself from asking. Qin Yunran chuckled. Wushuang, it's a long story, let's talk about it in the future. Don't mind it too much, this is not directed at us. We're just being used as punching bags for them to vent their anger. Haha, it's good that you are fine, hurry and come to the Karakoram Immortal Clan. Qin Wushuang also knew that most likely this matter was not directed at them. Or else, to trick them, the most direct way would be to kill them and not throw them on the way. He asked with a low voice, Second Chief, is it convenient for you to talk? Qin Yunran was stunned, but he did not reveal any flaws. He laughed heartily. Now that all these friends are here, it's very lively. Qin Wushuang said, all right, second sect leader, I'll tell you. Seeing Qin Wushuang's reaction, Qin Yunran knew that this matter was of great importance. He nodded and said, all right, just say it. Qin Wushuang said, Second Chief, at least 2 people from the Heavenly Emperor Xen clan have not arrived, right? At least 1 person from the Heavenly Punishing Villa and the Sound of Thunder sect is not here, right? That's right. There is a group of people who might still be on their way. Qin Yunran tried his best to keep his tone calm so that the people around him would not be suspicious. Yen Qiansui of the Heavenly Punishing Villa, Lei Hong of the Sound of Thunder sect, and Xian Wuang of the Heavenly Emperor Gate will never return. These people were all dead. Second Chief, I did not kill them, but the Amei Daoist sect. At the moment, Qin Wushuang briefly explained the matter of the 10,000 Flower Valley. Then, he said, that Xian Wuji chased after me closely and has completely shed all pretenses of cordiality. He knows that I acquired the Supreme Tao fruit and will certainly chase after me along the way. However, the prerequisite is that he can get out of the 10,000 Flower Valley. Second Chief, you must be careful of people of the Amei Daoist sect. Inwardly, Qin Yunran was surprised and joyful. He was surprised that the Amei Daoist sect was this sinister and vicious. He was joyful that Qin Wushuang had acquired the Supreme Tao fruit. To the Qin clan that was in an unfavorable situation, this was definitely great news. Qin Yunran could easily analyze what kind of scene it would be if the Qin clan had 2 more Supreme Tao elite warriors. To put it bluntly, if the Qin clan could have 2 more Supreme Tao elite warriors, at the Heavenly Emperor Mountain pageant in 17 years, the Qin clan would have a great chance to replace the Xian clan and seize back the Heavenly Emperor's seat. Thinking here, Qin Yunran's heart rose and fell with great waves. Yet, he remained calm and collected as he said with a smile, Wushuang, then come to the Karakoram Immortal Clan, hurry up. We will talk about other matters when we return to the Xian Yuan Mound. Now, Qin Yunran appeared incredibly calm. He did not wish to reveal any flaws and let the other sects set their eyes on him. However, Qin Wushuang said, Second Chief, now I am worried that if that Xian Wuji does not have any hope to seize the Supreme Tao fruit, he will become angry out of shame. He will spread the news and attract all powerhouses to target the Qin clan. With Xian Wuji's sinister nature, it's not like he would not do such a thing. In this case, most likely Qin Wushuang would walk right into a trap if he were to head to the Karakoram Immortal Clan. By that time, certainly each powerhouse would send elite warriors to kill him along the way and seize the Supreme Tao fruit. Upon hearing the words of Qin Wushuang, Qin Yunran also understood the severity of the matter. For the time, he fell silent. Qin Wushuang said, Second Chief, please rest assured, I will act according to the circumstances. Qin Yunran said, all right, let's talk about it this way. Qin Yunran put away the communication jade plate. It was because he realized that Xian Tianqian of the Heavenly Emperor Xian clan was looking at him with a pair of malicious eyes. Qin Yunran was not afraid of this Xian Tianqian as he smiled calmly. Inwardly, he was thinking about how to make a fuss. With this supreme Tao fruit, for the time being, this 10,000-year immortal pilgrimage pageant had become less important. Although this pageant was extremely rare, to ordinary sects, they would only come to watch the fun, and it would be impossible for them to gain any benefit. Qin Yunran thought that perhaps he should secretly inform Qin Wushuang to return to the Xian Yuan Mound first. However, with many eyes and ears, perhaps someone would pay attention to his words. Therefore, it would be inconvenient for him to say anything. However, that Xian Tianqian walked over with a fake smile. Brother Yunran, your Qin clan seems to be missing one person. Qin Yunran chuckled. Of course, how could we compare to your heavenly emperor gate? Surely you are all here, right? One disciple of the Qin clan is dragging us down. I don't know if he will come or not. Xian Tianqian gave a cold sneer and asked, Brother Yunran, would you be interested in a private conversation? Qin Yunran laughed. Brother Tianqian, let's talk when we return to the Xian Yuan Mound. Now with so many friends here, it would not be good to leave anyone out. Those who don't know the inside story would think we are plotting something. Haha, Brother Xuechen, it's been a long time since we drank together, right? When he spoke to Xian Tianqian, he stopped to look at the Yun clan. He walked towards Yun Xuechen with a face full of smiles. Yun Xuechen was the leader of the Yun clan this time, and shared a relationship with the Qin clan. He nodded with a smile. Brother Yunran, I do want to drink with you. However, your fire vermilion fruit wine conflicts with my training. I cannot drink too much. Qin Yunran had a fiery personality, and the fire attribute was the most prominent. On the path of the Supreme Tao, he specialized in the fire attribute. Yun Xuechen had the water attribute as the Supreme Tao attribute. The two extremes of ice and fire were completely different. Therefore, Yun Xuechen usually did not drink that fire vermilion fruit wine. Haha, Brother Xuechen, your Yun clan is the most powerful. Everyone is here. For the Heavenly Emperor 8 gates, besides the Yun clan, it seems that everyone has lost contact. Xian Tianqian walked over with a thick face. Brother Yunran, the one that did not come back seems to be called Qin Wushuang, right? Brother Tianqian, how come you are so interested in one of my young disciples? Qin Yunran asked with a face full of curiosity. Haha, I am not interested in him. However, I am very interested in the things he did. Brother Yunran, if I've guessed correctly, a moment ago, you were communicating with that Qin Wushuang, right? What about it? Qin Yunran withdrew his previous cheerful tone and revealed a solemn expression. When Yun Xuechen saw them at daggers drawn, he laughed. I say, this is the Karakoram Immortal Clan, not the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. Whatever anger you have, suppress it. Among the Heavenly Emperor 8 gates, the Qin clan and the Yun clan were the seniors. When they were talking with the Heavenly Emperor Xian clan, they were more relaxed and did not hold the same reverence as the other sections. After all, regarding the position of Heavenly Emperor, the Qin clan and the Yun clan were more senior than the Xian clan. They had sat in this position far more often than the Xian clan. Xian Tianqian said with a cold sneer, Brother Xuechen, I have some personal matters and would like to spar with you. Would it be convenient for you to leave? Although Yun Xuechen was close to the Qin clan and was also concerned about Qin Wushuang's matters, these were all activities in his heart. On the surface, he remained calm and collected. He spread out his hands and said with grace, You guys spar, I will walk around. After Yun Xuechen had left, Qin Yunran glared at Xian Tianqian. There was not the slightest friendliness from his eyes as he said coldly, Brother Tianqian, I don't seem to have anything in common with you. Xian Tianqian gave an eerie laugh, and a trace of ridicule overflowed from the corner of his mouth. Brother Yunran, a straightforward person does not resort to insinuations. When your communication jade plate is unsealed, ours is also unsealed. What you know, I also know. For the matter of the 10,000 Flower Valley, Do you think you want to keep it a secret? As soon as Xian Tianchen laid all his cards on the table, Qin Yunran instantly fell into a deadlock. He knew that since this Xian Tianchen dared to speak this way, he must have his intentions. Brother Yunran, don't you think that we can have a good talk about this matter? Qin Yunran said coldly, What is there to talk about? There are many things we can talk about. You would not wish for me to announce this news to the world, right? By that time, your Qin clan will become a rat crossing the street and everyone will shout and beat you. An ordinary man was innocent, but treasuring a jade ring would arouse the envy of others. The Qin clan held no grudges with the people of the world. It was impossible for everyone to deal with the Qin clan. However, once the Qin clan possessed the supreme Dao fruit, it would be enough to make any powerhouse besides the totem clan go crazy. After all, the supreme Dao fruit meant a spot for a supreme Dao elite warrior. It would be 100% equal. Xian Tianchen, are you talking in your sleep? Do you think that with your one-sided words, anyone would believe you? Haha, one-sided words? Then what if people of the Amei Daoist sect also speak this way? Would it still be one-sided words? You must know that the 10,000 Flower Valley is the territory of the Amei Daoist sect. Xian Tianchen said with a beaming smile. A ruthless light flashed across Qin Yunran's eyes as he asked with a low voice, What do you want? It's simple, for the supreme Dao fruit, everyone who saw it will get a share. You guys got 2, we will each take 1. For this matter, we will shoulder it together. Even if the Amei Daoist sect insists, the Heavenly Emperor Gate is willing to testify that Qin Wushuang was not at the scene. Xian Tianchen's suggestion was workable. It was because the outside world knew that the Heavenly Emperor Xian clan did not share a good relationship with the Qin clan. If the Xian clan stepped out to testify for the Qin clan, everyone would certainly believe it. However, in the end, this would only work to the Xian clan. To the Qin clan, why should they share the treasure with the Xian clan when they already got it? A surge of arrogance surged from Qin Yunran's heart as he said with a cold sneer, Xian Tianchen, keep daydreaming. What does the supreme Dao fruit have to do with the Qin clan? You want to frame the Qin clan, let me tell you, no chance. Qin Yunran was rather mischievous as he flatly denied it. Author's note, I recommend a book. In the spring of the 21st year of the Kai Yuan dynasty of the Tang dynasty, in the Jin Yuan county of the Shu state of Jianan Dao, the soul of a modern person possessed the body of a county school student named Li Shi. From then on, a historical legend that shook the world began. Yang Guifei's eternal beauty, Yang Guozhong's lack of knowledge and economic talent, Li Linfu's honeyed words and a sword in his heart, Madame Guo's indifference and arrogance, and Lushan's loyalty and evil intentions, the author of the Qidian powerhouse returning to history at an early age will certainly be interesting to watch. I hope everyone can go and take a look. The title of the book is Spring of the Great Tang Dynasty, book number 193-6955. Chapter 673. Xian Tianchen thought that as soon as he used his trump card, it would be difficult for the Qin clan to not submit. Unexpectedly, Qin Yunran was stubborn and did not leave him any leeway. Xian Tianchen was also not someone easy to deal with. With a roaring laugh, suddenly his expression turned cold as he said coldly, All right, Qin Yunran, then don't blame me for taking things too far. Qin Wushuang. TSK, for a great young man, I am afraid he will lose his little life before he can reach the Karakoram immortal clan after taking something he should not have. Qin Yunran also retorted with ridicule, You don't have to worry about this. It seems that the one who will lose his little life first is not a disciple of the Qin clan, right? Clearly, these words were insinuating that Xian Wuang had lost his life at the 10,000 Flower Valley. Indeed, Xian Tianchen's expression changed drastically, as if he had been whipped. Good, Qin Yunran, then we will see. In the next moment, I promise that all sects and people of the 5 forbidden spiritual zones will know that Qin Wushuang has acquired the supreme Tao fruit. Let's see how that Qin Wushuang will come here. Qin Yunran laughed. Thank you for your concern. However, Qin Wushuang has already returned to the Xian Yuan Mound. He didn't plan to come. Yes, to ensure his safety, it seems that my head chief plans to come out and help him. It seemed as if someone had whipped Xian Tianqian as his eyes became even more resentful. He realized that when he was facing this Qin Yunran, he could not gain the slightest upper hand. He glared at Qin Yunran and left angrily. Although Qin Yunran had won against Xian Tianqian in terms of temperament, he was not happy at all inwardly. This supreme Tao fruit was a good thing. However, it would not be safe even if he got it. He must consume it before it would be counted as his. At least, he must return to the Qin clan and reach the aspiring throne mountain before it would be counted as his. This Xian Tianqian was not a kind man. If he said it, he would do it. Although Qin Yunran was somewhat worried, he felt relieved. Inwardly he thought, for this child Wushuang, ever since he stepped onto the path of martial arts, he has always been full of surprises. Perhaps this time, he can still create a surprise. Since ancient times, which of those who have achieved great things did not become a talent through tempering? However, after Qin Wushuang and Qin Yunran ended their conversation, he calmed down. He thought that since the seal of his communication jade plate had been broken, it should be the same for Xian Wuji. If Xian Wuji were to spread the news, without a doubt, Qin Wushuang would become the target of public criticism. Therefore, if they continued to head to the Kunlun Immortal Clan, it might be very dangerous. Now that the elites of the 5 forbidden spiritual zones had gathered at the Kunlun Immortal Clan, it was needless to say how dangerous it would be. He took out the communication jade tablet and said to Ruotong, Ruotong, I have a friend in the 10,000 Flower Valley. You must ensure that the divine beasts cannot harm him. His name is Jiufang Yunfei. Ruotong said, Master, the restrictions of the 10,000 Flower Valley have all been broken. Many cultivators have already left the 10,000 Flower Valley. What? Qin Wushuang was shocked. Little junior sister did it. Grand senior sister did not stop him. It seems that she deliberately let little junior sister do it, and let her get punished before the chief. Qin Wushuang felt apprehensive inwardly. He knew that Shui Rulan had a kind heart and was extremely resistant to the massacre inside the 10,000 Flower Valley. Therefore, she had opened the restrictions and let all the martial artists go. Thinking here, he looked at the spiritual perception jade plate. He took out the observant finger jade plate and discovered that Jiufang Yunfei had indeed left the 10,000 Flower Valley. The most surprising thing was that Qin Wushuang discovered that Xian Wuji had also come out. He was also chasing towards his direction at a fast speed. If Qin Wushuang did not leave in less than 15 minutes, that Xian Wuji would catch up to him. When Qin Wushuang thought of Xian Wuji, anger emerged from his heart. Regardless of going to the Kunlun Immortal Clan, I am not in a rush to return to the Xian Yuan Mound. Since this Xian Wuji is forcing me, if I do not fight with him, I will not be able to vent this surge of anger from my heart. From beginning to end, it was this Xian Wuji who had ruined his business. Initially, he had already gotten his way. If Xian Wuji had not stopped him at the cave entrance, he would have already left the 10,000 Flower Valley. How could he have waited until the restrictions were opened? Thinking here, Qin Wushuang was not in a rush to leave. Along the way, he left some presents without leaving a trace. Since Xian Wuji would not give up, then I will play with you. Anger also emerged from Qin Wushuang's heart as he became more daring. Inwardly, a bold idea emerged. Since the Heavenly Emperor Xian clan did not hesitate to fall out with the Qin clan, certainly it would be a major blow to the Xian clan if they were to kill Xian Wuji through the competition for the supreme Dao fruit. Thinking here, Qin Wushuang no longer hesitated. He took out the sealed scroll and made a hand gesture. As he chanted the spell, he started to summon it. With a flash of two profound lights, instantly a powerful airflow rolled in the surrounding area. A ball of circular whirlpool kept rising from the ground and shooting out dazzling lights. Amidst the lights, two ferocious-looking beasts with mighty figures stretched their muscles and bones. It was as if the sleeping devils had just woken up. Roar! With two low roars, rings of shock waves emerged from the ground and kept spreading out. Everything within 10 miles was leveled to the ground. Inside the ball of light, the figures of the two spiritual beasts also changed rapidly. Finally, between the eruption of the lights, they turned into two burly men with gloomy and cold temperament. They dropped down and knelt before Qin Wushuang on one knee. Swallowing Sky Lion Dragon, Dark Mysterious Snake, it's nice to meet you, Master. Qin Wushuang laughed. Swallowing Sky, Dark Mysterious, finally you guys are here. From now on, the 12 great sealed spiritual beasts are gathered, ha ha ha. The 12 great sealed spiritual beasts also shared a good relationship with each other. They all started to communicate. However, clearly this Swallowing Sky Lion Dragon and Dark Mysterious Snake held a much higher status. The other spiritual beasts all carried a form of reverence to these two kings. Qin Wushuang explained the general situation and said, that Xian Wuji is the son of the Heavenly Emperor, the number one among the younger generation of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. Now, he is haunting me. Today I will fight with him. Even if I have to offend the Xian clan, I will kill this guy. You must help me. Dark Mysterious Snake said with a cold sneer, is that Xian Wuji an elite warrior of the Supreme Dao? He is at the peak of the common mysterious stage, one step away from the Supreme Dao stage. Only, the son of the Heavenly Emperor must have Supreme Dao weapons and many good equipment. Equipment and weapons are dead. Swallowing Sky Lion Dragon said lightly. Only power and stage are the most real. Perhaps Supreme Dao weapons can intimidate others. However, Dark Mysterious and I are not afraid of Supreme Dao weapons. One-on-one, perhaps he can gain the upper hand with a Supreme Dao weapon. However, 2 against 1, even with a Supreme Dao weapon, he will die without a burial place. There is no need for you to make a move. When Qin Wushuang saw that these two spiritual beasts at the peak of the common mysterious stage were incredibly arrogant, he felt relieved inwardly. Yet, he was not blindly optimistic. Although these two spiritual beasts were powerful, Xian Wuji possessed vast divine abilities and was full of tricks. They must be on guard against him. Thinking here, Qin Wushuang laughed. We can look down on Xian Wuji in terms of strategy, yet we must value him in terms of tactics. Since we are going to fight, we must ensure a 100% success rate. Or else, it would not be good if we let that Xian Wuji escape. Now, Qin Wushuang wanted to get rid of Xian Wuji wholeheartedly. Naturally, he did not want to fail to make him stay after making a move. Don't worry, Master, with me and Swallowing Sky, that Xian Wuji will not be able to fly in the sky or escape into the ground. Dark Mysterious Snake appeared incredibly confident. Qin Wushuang nodded. All right. Soon, Sky Pilfered Mole returned. Master, there is a canyon in the northwest direction. The surrounding area is high and the center is low. It's a good place to stop that Xian Wuji. Qin Wushuang nodded. All right, then let's choose that place. When they arrived near that canyon, Qin Wushuang looked at the observant finger jade plate again and realized that Xian Wuji was already close. Qin Wushuang took out the communication jade plate and asked Ruotong, "Where is the divine beast of the Amei Daoist sect?" Great Tiger Saint is still chasing after the remaining martial artists at the 10,000 Flower Valley. This answer made Qin Wushuang feel greatly reassured. As long as that monstrous divine beast did not step out, he could fight a great battle with Xian Wuji without worry. After taking out Xian Wuji, he would make a fuss about whether to fight or make peace. On the other hand, Xian Wuji was also somewhat suspicious inwardly as he chased after them. This Qin Wushuang is truly fast at escaping. However, in the end, he is not strong enough. How could it be possible to not leave any presence behind? While he was thinking, Second Chief Xian Tianqian's signal came from the other side of the communication jade plate. Second uncle, what did that Qin Yunran say? That old man is not tactful at all. Wuji, do you have the confidence to kill that Qin Wushuang alone? Although Xian Wuji was confident, he would not boast. Second uncle, that Qin Wushuang has ordinary skills, but he is first class at escaping. I will do my best. How about I inform the other sects to make that Qin Wushuang a rat crossing the street and be chased by everyone? I believe that the Amei Daoist sect will be interested in this kid. Xian Wuji immediately stopped him. Second uncle, there is no need to be in a rush. If this Qin Wushuang gets the supreme Dao fruit, I have a plan that will allow the Heavenly Emperor Gate to find an excuse to send a punitive expedition to the Qin clan. Oh! Instantly, Xian Tianqian became interested. They could send a punitive expedition to the Qin clan? This would be the best. What if they got the supreme Dao fruit? They would not have the time to digest it. This time at the 10,000 Flower Valley, Wushuang was sacrificed. Lei Hong and Yen Qiansui also lost their lives. For everything, we can push all the blame to Qin Wushuang. We can charge the Qin clan with internal strife. Plus, we made a 3-point agreement before our departure. Since the Qin clan violated it, it's perfectly justifiable for us to send out troops. If the Heavenly Punishing Villa and the Sound of Thunder sect see us making a move, they will be happy to be the vanguard. By that time, Xian Tianqian laughed. Good plan. Wuji, this is a good plan. I will contact the Heavenly Emperor now. We will do it according to this plan. Humph, this Qin Wushuang wants to escape back to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. That's good, we will dig a giant grave for the Qin clan and fill it with all of them. Xian Tianqian's tone was filled with vicious intentions. Second uncle, wait for my news. If I can get the supreme Dao fruit, we will make plans for this plan. If I don't get it, we will execute it immediately. You can also announce the news to the Karakoram Immortal clan and let the Qin clan fall into a moral disadvantage. Haha, of course. Wuji, for this little matter, I understand. Xian Tianqian laughed eerily and licked his lip. Murderous intentions filled his eyes as if he wished to destroy the Qin clan immediately. To be continued, if you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 674. Xian Wuji closed the communication jade plate and felt incredibly carefree inwardly. This time, it was destined that regardless of whether Qin Wushuang could successfully take away that supreme Dao fruit, the Qin clan would not be the final winner. If Qin Wushuang could not take away that supreme Dao fruit, of course the Qin clan could not be counted as the winner. Even if Qin Wushuang took away that supreme Dao fruit, once this vicious scheme started, the Qin clan would still be beaten passively. Everything was within Xian Wuji's calculations. Xian Wuji was secretly proud. Unexpectedly, he had schemed against the Qin clan and Qin Wushuang. Qin Wushuang was also scheming against him. At this moment, not far from Xian Wuji, Qin Wushuang was setting up a cloth bag for Xian Wuji and waiting for him to crawl in. As soon as this Xian Wuji came in, the 4 spiritual beasts at the exquisite mysterious boundary stage, Qin Wushuang, and the 5 elite warriors would surround and attack him. Qin Wushuang had also arranged it well. Those that could fight with Xian Wuji must be spiritual beasts at the exquisite mysterious boundary stage. For the other 8 spiritual beasts, even if they were at the perfect void martial stage, Qin Wushuang did not plan to send them out. It was because Xian Wuji's methods were enough to instantly kill spiritual beasts at the perfect void martial stage. Qin Wushuang was able to fight because he had the supreme Dao weapon to rely on for both offense and defense. Even if there was a difference between him and Xian Wuji, it was enough for him to use the supreme Dao weapon to deal with him. Hunting Xian Wuji could be said to be the most difficult battle since Qin Wushuang had stepped onto the path of martial art. It was also the strongest battle he had ever encountered. It could also be said to be a battle between the peak warriors beneath the supreme Dao stage. He had won this battle. Basically, it could be said that beneath the supreme Dao stage, Qin Wushuang could claim to be invincible. Xian Wuji kept moving forward, and in a moment, he had arrived near the canyon where Qin Wushuang was located. Xian Wuji's intuition was incredibly sharp as he suddenly stopped his footstep. Like lightning, he glanced around and suddenly, he locked onto the ground beneath him. That sharp gaze seemed to want to see through the underground. Underground, sky pilfered mole and moon palace jade hair trembled and hurriedly burrowed deeper into the ground. Inwardly, Xian Wuji was moved. The presence of this Qin Wushuang has suddenly become this rich. Could it be that this kid wants to ambush me here? Xian Wuji had the personality of a fox. When encountering matters, he would first consider his own safety. Then he would consider other problems. But then he thought, if this Qin Wushuang wanted to ambush me, why would he not conceal his aura? Isn't this telling me that he's nearby? He thought quickly and immediately remembered. At the 10,000 Flower Valley, this Qin Wushuang had once disregarded everything to train and was targeted by the disciples of the Amei Daoist sect. This time, could it be that this kid was still cultivating in this place? Or else, what can these 2 spiritual beasts at the void martial stage do? How dare they be the vanguard? Although Xian Wuji thought this way, he could not be sure. Both scenarios were possible. If Qin Wushuang was cultivating here, Xian Wuji could charge in and catch him off guard. If that Qin Wushuang was waiting for him here to ambush him, most likely this was a trap. Most likely, these 2 underground spiritual beasts were a deceptive tactic. Xian Wuji had interacted with Qin Wushuang a few times. He knew that Qin Wushuang was a person full of tricks and trick. Inwardly, he was extra cautious. Additionally, considering that Qin Wushuang seemed to be able to locate Xian Wuji's position, this way, it was highly possible that everything was a trap. When Xian Wuji thought here, he could not refrain from letting out a long laugh. Qin Wushuang, I know you are here. Xian Wuji's voice was not that kind of wild howl and did not have that kind of world-shaking temperament. However, like a wave, it surged over wave after wave. Qin Wushuang revealed a light smile. Initially, he had never thought to deceive Xian Wuji when he did everything. As long as this Xian Wuji approached the vicinity of this valley, it would be the same as entering an inescapable net. He initiated his central qi and said with an indifferent voice, Xian Wuji, I will wait for you here, let's settle this. Xian Wuji sneered inwardly, settle this? Although Qin Wushuang has good talent, you are overestimating yourself if you want to settle this with me, the son of the heavenly emperor. Xian Wuji was incredibly confident of his own strength. Beneath the supreme Dao stage, he had never considered an opponent that could match him. This Qin Wushuang was not in the list of potential opponents. Qin Wushuang, if I were you, I would certainly choose to escape by relying on a woman to escape from the 10,000 Flower Valley. You are showing off your ability here, very good. Xian Wuji spoke with a smile, and appeared to be incredibly calm. Inwardly, he was already thinking about how to deal with this Qin Wushuang. Although the two of them were separated by a valley, they were already trying to suppress the other party through a battle of words. Xian Wuji said that Qin Wushuang relied on a woman, yet he did not mention the fact that he relied on a woman to scheme for the supreme Dao fruit. Upon hearing these words, Qin Wushuang's mood was as clear as a mirror, for there was not the slightest ripple. Xian Wuji, if you think you can use this method to provoke me, then you are gravely mistaken. For today's battle, if you win, step over my dead body and take away the two supreme Dao fruits. If you lose, you will die. Xian Wuji sneered inwardly. He knew that Qin Wushuang was incomparable to others. However, even if Qin Wushuang was a genius, at most he would be on par with the most exceptional Qin Taichung. However, in Xian Wuji's eyes, at most Qin Taichung would be a little threat. If he were to confront him head-on, Xian Wuji had 100% assurance that he could take care of Qin Taichung within 10 moves. In the end, Xian Wuji was incredibly confident of his own strength. Whoosh! Suddenly, Xian Wuji's body transformed into a long rainbow. He slashed with the supreme Dao sword from his hand high up in the sky. Instantly, the bitter supreme Dao sword light slashed down like a light wall. The power was like a sudden clap of thunder. With a rumbling sound, it was as if a rampaging ferocious beast was going to break this canyon apart. Boom! The earth shattered, and countless thick trees were completely shattered into pieces by this sword. A large forest was split into 2 halves. A giant hole appeared on the ground as if the earth had sunk. This sword had actually shattered the earth from such a great distance away. Qin Wushuang let out a long laugh. In the middle of the sky, a figure glided up and dashed into the sky. The purple cloud in yang wings spread open endlessly as if he was a celestial being. Qin Wushuang revealed a slight smile. Xian Wuji, your sword move is nice. However, don't you feel that this move seems to be a bluff? Xian Wuji revealed a cold sneer and pointed his sword at Qin Wushuang from afar. A bluff? Then I will let you understand what it means to be at the peak of the common mysterious stage. As soon as his words dropped, he shook the long sword and instantly, countless sword flowers congealed into lightning. Bearing fangs and brandishing claws, it filled the entire sky with this colorful lightning. For a time, there were endless rays of light. It formed an attack wave like a fishing net that dashed into the sky. Suddenly, Qin Wushuang's figure seemed to become transparent. His entire body was like a drop of water that had merged into the ocean. With a flash, he disappeared into the sky. Cloud Garment Feathery Technique. This was a consummate skill taught to Qin Wushuang by Yun Xuechen. Qin Wushuang used it with great proficiency. His entire body had completely transformed into the sky and merged with the countless clouds. Despite Xian Wuji's remarkable abilities, he did not know where Qin Wushuang had escaped to. Qin Wushuang, to fight a decisive battle with me, you are using this method of escaping? Xian Wuji revealed a proud smile. Only, do you think you can escape from my attack by using the tactic of a coward? Xian Wuji's sword moved like a dragon and snake. With a sway of his body, countless afterimages filled the sky. Each of the Xian Wuji formed by the afterimages seemed to be dancing with the sword. Clearly, this Xian Wuji was preparing to use his consummate skill. At this moment, suddenly 2 tiger roars emerged from the ground. 2 spiritual beasts dashed into the sky and charged at Xian Wuji's body. For these 2 lights, one was purple and the other was blood red. The speed of these 2 lights was as fast as those cannonballs that had left the barrel and carried endless power. With a glance from the corner of his eyes, Xian Wuji realized that these 2 ferocious beasts were the 2 spiritual beasts at the profound mysterious stage that Qin Wushuang had used to escape from the cave. Xian Wuji was at the peak of the common mysterious stage. How could he care about 2 spiritual beasts at the profound void martial stage? He waved the long sword casually and 2 sword lights shot down at a rapid speed. Looking down from above, it instantly scattered into countless thin sword lights and shot toward the 2 spirit beasts. These 2 spiritual beasts were the purple pupil golden ox and the burning sky explosive tiger. This was the first step of Qin Wushuang's strategy. He would let Xian Wuji think that Qin Wushuang only had these trump cards. From there, he would let the other party form the mentality of a proud soldier. For the last 2 spiritual beasts at the peak of the common mysterious stage, it would be fine if Qin Wushuang did not use them. Once he used them, he must finish the battle quickly and accurately. He wanted the effect of finishing the battle with one blow. Although the 2 spiritual beasts had charged at a fast speed, clearly they had left something behind. As soon as the sword lights swept over, the ball of light formed by the 2 spiritual beasts dispersed instantly. Halfway through, they had transformed into 2 meteoric lights and shot to the side. Clearly, they would not dare to face Xian Wuji's sword light head-on. Although these 2 attacks were not enough to inflict heavy injuries on them, if they were hit, they would not be able to bear the consequences. After all, they were not at the peak of the common mysterious stage, and would not dare to face the sword head-on. Xian Wuji forced back the 2 spiritual beasts with one move and roared with laughter. Qin Wushuang, do you think that you can make up for the fatal difference between me and you with just a few useless sealed spiritual beasts? Qin Wushuang's figure peeked out from the clouds at a steady pace. His tone still sounded calm and at ease. Yes, Xian Wuji, soon you will see the fatal difference between you and me. Watch my arrows. Qin Wushuang made a bluff with the graceful spiritual bow and pulled the bowstring casually. However, no arrow was shot out. Naturally, Xian Wuji's entire body emerged with a burst of faint green light. Supreme Dao Dragon Scale Armor? Swallowing Sky Lion Dragon, who had been hiding in the dark, was a descendant of the Dragon Clan. Naturally, he knew what kind of powerful dragon scale armor was hidden beneath this faint green light. Dark back, this guy is much more difficult to deal with than you and I thought. Swallowing Sky Lion Dragon gave a long sigh. Dark Mysterious Snake laughed. It would have been fine if he was using other Supreme Dao Dragon Scale armor. I believe you will have a way to use your dragon scale armor. Swallowing Sky Lion Dragon laughed. Let's try. With a sway of his body, the black lights pierced into the sky. As if a giant man had drilled out of the sky, he turned his 5 fingers into a claw and grabbed at Xian Wuji. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please log on to www.chidian.com. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 675. Xian Wuji did not expect that a person would jump out casually from the sky. Startled inwardly, he slashed with his long sword in a cross. A cross-shaped airflow stirred up powerful airflow to collide with him. The strength of this grab actually caused a series of violent ripples to appear in the void. The powerful explosion of the spatial airflow showed that the power of this grab was not something that an ordinary person could compare with. Xian Wuji stood with his sword and said with a cold sneer, "Who are you? Are you a helper invited by that kid from the Qin clan?" Currently, Swallowing Sky Lion Dragon was still in his human form. Although he had not restored his true form, he was already abnormally powerful. His casual grab had made Xian Wuji treat him with such seriousness. As soon as an expert made a move, one would know whether they were real or not. Instantly, Swallowing Sky Lion Dragon's grab had swept away Xian Wuji's previous contempt. Instead, he looked at the Swallowing Sky Lion Dragon with a dignified expression and a face full of alertness. Swallowing Sky Lion Dragon said lightly, "Kid, the more you resist, the more miserable your death will be. If you don't want to suffer, the best way is to commit suicide." As if Xian Wuji had heard the most ridiculous joke in the world, he laughed. You have good strength, but do you think that you can speak such boastful words with just the power of that grab? Swallowing Sky Lion Dragon did not like to speak nonsense. He took 2 steps forward and said, "Then let's try a few more grabs." His figure kept swaying like a twisting lotus leaf in the breeze. Although he did not move much, suddenly, his arms seemed to have transformed into countless arms like the 1,000-hand guanyin. Each arm had 5 fingers. Instantly, countless claw shadows filled the sky and pressed towards Xian Wuji from all directions. Void spiritual claw filling the sky. Before Swallowing Sky Lion Dragon had used his moves, suddenly, his entire body shone with profound light. He drew a beautiful arc and crashed towards Xian Wuji. While moving in the arc, suddenly Swallowing Sky Lion Dragon stretched out his body. With a shake of his 4 limbs, his body changed drastically and revealed his true form. The true form of Swallowing Sky Lion Dragon was abnormally ferocious. He had the shape of a lion and the head of a dragon. His appearance was somewhat similar to a qilin. However, her body and curves appeared extremely smooth. When she dashed forward, she had grasped the arc of impact with extreme precision. She dashed towards Xian Wuji's ribs with a boom. Xian Wuji turned pale with fright as he protected his chest with the long sword. Directly, he had forced out a few dozen bursts of sword chi to form a defensive net 10 meters before him. The heaven-devouring lion dragon could be said to be swift like a bolt of lightning, and it instantly arrived before Chen Shi. Brandishing both of his claws, he let out a loud roar. Profound light burst out, instantly tearing the defensive net formed by the sword chi into pieces. Spiritual energy shot out in all directions, and the colors were extremely dazzling. It was as neat as fireworks scattered in the air. In terms of the degree of brilliance, it was far superior to the short-lived fireworks. Now, Xian Wuji knew that this vicious beast should be Qin Wushuang's sealed divine beast. In his heart, he cursed Qin Wushuang for being so cunning. He had hidden his trump card. This divine beast was definitely at the peak of the common mysterious stage. The power of its combat power was not inferior to Xian Wuji. This sealed divine beast from the ancient times had gone through hundreds of battles. Compared to Xian Wuji, this young man, his attainment in combat was many times more outstanding. Fortunately, in the end, Xian Wuji was at the peak of the common mysterious stage. With only a moment of hesitation, he held the supreme Dao long sword and did not retreat. On the contrary, he slashed at the head of the heaven-devouring lion dragon. Wave slash against the wind. This sword move was also Xian Wuji's ultimate skill. Instantly, he could mobilize all of his combat power and use it on this sword move to form the strongest sword move. The heaven-devouring lion dragon let out a mischievous laugh. Suddenly, he stopped and pressed both of his claws to make a crawling posture. His entire body bent into a beautiful arc suddenly, like barbed thorns. All the hair on his entire body stood up. As if filled with steel needles, they sparkled with lights. He opened his mouth, and a burst of invisible power started to gush out from the dantian of the heaven-devouring lion dragon. Inherited secret technique, swallowing the sky. Roar. At this moment, the heaven-devouring lion dragon had performed his innate divine skill, swallowing the sky. As soon as he performed this swallowing the sky divine skill, instantly, the powerful absorption power rolled over mercilessly like a swallowing whirlpool. With the momentum of a whirlwind sweeping away the clouds, it rolled towards Xian Wuji. If Xian Wuji did not have a firm willpower, he would most likely have been sucked in by the heaven-devouring lion dragon with this first move. Even in this case, Xian Wuji still felt waves of turbulence from his dantian. His entire primordial spirit felt somewhat floating and at a loss. Although this swallowing the sky divine skill did not break his defense, It already intimidated his soul and caused genuine fear to emerge from Xian Wuji's heart. Once the fear of death appeared, it would be impossible for Xian Wuji to maintain 100% calm. Too powerful! Xian Wuji shook his head and cleared his head. Immediately, he analyzed the situation clearly. For this battle, Qin Wushuang had 3 spiritual beasts as his companions. Although Xian Wuji still had trump cards, he knew that it would not be easy to win. This spiritual beast at the peak of the common mysterious stage before him was too difficult to deal with. As soon as this divine secret technique was unleashed, if Xian Wuji had not maintained a sufficient distance, most likely he would have been swallowed into its stomach. Although this spiritual beast was incomparable to the divine white tiger, such powerful divine skill still made Xian Wuji feel waves of lingering fear. Xian Wuji thought quickly and knew that Qin Wushuang had indeed lured him here because he had a trump card. He knew that today's odds of winning were already 50-50. Since Xian Wuji already had a card up his sleeve to deal with the Qin clan, how could he risk his life here? Inwardly he thought, it seems that I must carry out that plan to attack the Qin clan. I will let this Qin Wushuang live freely for 2 days. What if you are strong and can summon spiritual beasts at the peak of the common mysterious stage? It's like a sandbag. Although it has a gigantic body, can it stop the gushing flood from 10,000 hectares? Impossible. When he thought here, Xian Wuji gave a long whistle and said coldly, Qin Wushuang, it seems you only have the little skill to drive the spiritual beast to work for you. If you can block 3 of my arrows and not die, you can take away the supreme Dao fruit safely and I will not pursue this matter. How about it? Xian Wuji was trying to provoke him. Not only this little trick, in Qin Wushuang's eyes, it was extremely laughable. He said with an incredibly lazy tone, Xian Wuji, regardless of any skill, it's all skill. At the moment of life and death, regardless of what skill you have, I am only afraid that you do not have it. Or if you only have these skills, then you are finished. Suddenly, Xian Wuji's heart twitched. It seemed that each time Qin Wushuang spoke these words, he would have an ominous premonition. This time, Xian Wuji also had the same premonition. Just when he was concentrating his attention, suddenly, from the sky of the west, a wave of extremely stinky smell pressed down from the sky. Next, as if black clouds were pressing down on the city, the entire sky was suddenly filled with dark clouds. A giant black shadow came baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Xian Wuji raised his head to look, and could not refrain from breaking out in a cold sweat. What is this? This black mass in the sky was the dark mysterious snake that had transformed into his true form. Although this dark mysterious snake was gigantic, he was extremely agile. Suddenly, he twisted his thick tail and slashed at Xian Wuji's waist with the imposing manner of a blade light. Shwa, 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 this slash was a chain of 3 slashes. Xian Wuji did not dare to neglect it. With his body as light as a bird, he found a chance to evade from the space crack. When the 3 slashes of the dark mysterious snake's tail did not work, suddenly, he opened his giant head and spat out a burst of rich poisonous fog that quickly spread out. Xian Wuji did not know what this poisonous fog was. However, when he saw such a terrifying thing, he was unwilling to get contaminated. Being strong did not mean having a strong resistance to poison. When this dark mysterious snake spat out a mouthful of poisonous fog, instantly, it blocked the path above Xian Wuji. He could only drop down continuously. He glanced around and used his long sword to shake away the 2 spiritual beasts at the profound void martial stage, the purple pupil golden ox and the burning sky explosive tiger. He shouted, "Get lost!" When facing Xian Wuji, who was risking his life, the purple pupil golden ox and the burning sky explosive tiger did not dare to neglect him. They avoided direct contact with Xian Wuji and used guerrilla tactics to restrain him. At this moment, how could Xian Wuji not know that he was surrounded by Qin Wushuang's subordinates? Among all the spiritual beasts, only the swallowing sky lion dragon and the dark mysterious snake were qualified to pose a fatal threat to Xian Wuji. Currently, the dark mysterious snake controlled the sky and cut off Xian Wuji's escape route. The swallowing sky lion dragon, the purple pupil golden ox, and the burning sky explosive tiger were in charge of blocking from all directions. The swallowing sky lion dragon would be the main attacker. To put it bluntly, this tactic was to make dumplings. They wanted to make Xian Wuji a sandwich and surround him from all directions. Xian Wuji was bold due to his superior skills. Now, he could not but help to feel somewhat anxious. He knew that once these spiritual beasts successfully involved Xian Wuji, he would not be able to escape. With the power of Qin Wushuang's supreme Dao Bao, even if a sneak attack from behind could not kill Xian Wuji, it would be enough to injure him severely. Once injured, Xian Wuji would be alone. It would be easy for him to get beaten to death. Therefore, Xian Wuji made up his mind to retreat. There was no chance of winning this battle. He waved the long sword and activated the green dragon scale armor from his entire body. Disregarding everything, he dashed towards the ground. Since the surroundings had been locked down, the only way to escape was to go underground. It would also be the best way to avoid the sneak attack from the graceful spiritual bow. Flying in the air or walking on the ground would easily expose his body. Therefore, Xian Wuji judged the situation and decided to use the underground escape technique to slip away. Xian Wuji stepped on the ground with both feet and felt a burst of joy inwardly. He gathered all his power and concealed himself underground. Suddenly, Qin Wushuang shot out from the sky and a strange smile spilled from the corner of his mouth. Suddenly, he threw out an object from his hand. Instantly, a burst of yellow light filled the entire boundless earth. Falling tracking seal. It was one of the 6 great treasures left by Lu Xianlu. Not only could it track people who used the underground escape technique, it could also increase the power of the core of the earth by 10 times. Instantly, the 10 times increase in power had greatly reduced Xian Wuji's movements underground. Inwardly, Xian Wuji already felt that something was wrong. Swallowing sky, dark back, purple pupil, Fan Tian, get ready! The final show. Qin Wushuang revealed a calm smile and already lifted the graceful spiritual bow. In this instant, this fated battle had reached the moment to determine the winner. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 676. Fated Arrow, spurt out, roar, and complete the final mission. Qin Wushuang chanted inwardly and used the last Supreme Tao 5 Elemental Talisman to support the green jade arrow. Beneath the ground, the falling ground tracking seal expanded circles of ripples and kept moving. In the high sky, he could grasp this point more clearly. Within the area of this ripple, it was the place where the falling ground tracking seal had locked onto Xian Wuji's position. While Xian Wuji was walking underground, suddenly, he heard Qin Wushuang's voice. Immediately, he sensed that something was wrong. Today, something was wrong with this underground escape technique. No. Qin Wushuang must have done something to the ground. When Xian Wuji thought here, his primordial spirit almost exploded. He had been tricked. Break out of the ground? No, the 4 ferocious beasts were already ready to tear him apart at any moment. If he broke out of the ground now, those 4 spiritual beasts would surely tear him into pieces. For this point, Xian Wuji did not doubt it at all. When he tried to escape by force, under this terrain, the speed of his escape technique was only 1/10 of his usual speed. although walking at such speed was incomparable to a snail, to a powerful martial artist, it was truly slow. A joyful smile emerged from the corner of Qin Wushuang's mouth. This was the ultimate arrow, the ruling arrow. Life and death would depend on this arrow. He extended his arm, drew the bow, and lifted the arrow. The Supreme Tao 5 Elemental Talisman initiated a powerful primitive power with a rumble. It instantly dyed the green jade arrow into a burst of severe spiral drilling power. It shot towards Xian Wuji's position with a rumble. Boom! The arrow light clashed with the ground. Instantly, countless spider web-like cracks appeared on the entire ground. Instantly, these cracks enlarged endlessly. Bursts of ravines continued to split open at an astonishing speed. Boom! The green jade arrow shot into the ground with an unstoppable momentum. When the green light struck, Xian Wuji, who was hiding a few dozen meters below the ground, still waited as if he had encountered a great enemy. Green lights also erupted from his entire body as the green dragon scale armor shot out dazzling lights. Boom! The green and the green lights collided. Xian Wuji had caught the green jade arrow. The other end of the arrow pierced into Xian Wuji's chest mercilessly. Only, when it was blocked by this scale armor, besides the powerful impact, it did not penetrate Xian Wuji's chest. Xian Wuji only felt as if his 5 viscera and 6 bowels were about to shift. He felt indescribably uncomfortable and almost fainted instantly. However, Xian Wuji knew better than anyone that if he were to faint now, it would be a dead end. Enduring the pain, he spun in the air and dove deeper into the earth vein. Swallowing Sky Lion Dragon roared with laughter. Xian Wuji, is this Xian Wuji, the son of the Heavenly Emperor? Now that things have come to this, do you think it's easy to leave? Mustering all his strength, he opened his ferocious mouth and spewed out a stream of dragon breath. The 3 dragon whiskers shot towards Qin Wushuang like sharp steel needles. Dragon breath. What a powerful dragon breath. The Swan Ni clan was also a dragon. However, within the dragon clan, they belonged to the non-9 dragon clans. The so-called non-dragon 9 clans referred to the difference in appearance from the dragon clan's traditions. Furthermore, his bloodline was that of the dragon clan. Therefore, the dragon breath of this swallowing sky lion dragon was extremely pure. He urged the dragon whiskers to shoot at Xian Wuji. Almost accurately, it shot towards Xian Wuji's old wound. An ear-piercing drilling sound. This dragon whisker pierced through the dragon scale armor directly and penetrated Xian Wuji's chest. For someone as powerful as Xian Wuji, a mouthful of fresh blood gushed out madly. Swallowing Sky Lion Dragon did not show any mercy when he gained the upper hand. He grabbed with his dragon claws and instantly 2 streams of dragon claws shot down. With a light grab, he grabbed Xian Wuji's body from the ground. He threw him directly to the ground. Ha ha, master, I already said that this Xian Wuji must die. When the dark mysterious snake saw that he had succeeded, he was also incredibly happy. Now, Xian Wuji was already suffering severe injuries and was on the verge of death. Yet, his eyes were filled with ruthlessness as he glared at Qin Wushuang. Clearly, he still found it hard to believe. He had lost in such a miserable and embarrassing manner. Xian Wuji could not accept it. A kid from the human countries had defeated him, the son of the Heavenly Emperor? Even if this kid had relied on sealed spiritual beasts, when elite warriors fought with their enemies, who would not use whatever moves they had. This Qin Wushuang excelled at controlling spiritual beasts. It was a matter of course for him to use spiritual beasts. However, Xian Wuji could not accept it. He could not face this defeat. Qin Wushuang slowly dropped down and said with a cold voice, Xian Wuji, I already said that since you have lost, there is only death. Xian Wuji said with a miserable smile, Qin Wushuang, you are ruthless. You are ruthless. Qin Wushuang said lightly, you asked for it. At the entrance of the cave at the 10,000 Flower Valley, if you had not stopped me, how could today's disaster have befallen you? If your heavenly Emperor Xian clan did not have ulterior motives against the Qin clan, how could you target me, Qin Wushuang? Xian Wuji, rather than saying that I am going to kill you, it's better that you are seeking your own death. Suddenly, Xian Wuji roared with laughter. Good, Qin Wushuang, now you can be proud. You will regret it, ha ha ha. Kill me? In this world, no one can kill me. I, Xian Wuji, am the son of the heavenly emperor, the proud son of the gods. The person who is going to kill me has not been born yet. Suddenly, Xian Wuji's laughter was filled with madness. Suddenly, Xian Wuji's corporeal body erupted with rays of light. Instantly, it was as if a pile of dry firewood had started to burn. With a boom, Xian Wuji's corporeal body had exploded along with the explosion of that ball of light. Instantly, it had exploded into pieces. Qin Wushuang was dumbstruck. He did not expect that this Xian Wuji had self-destructed. Waves of echoes from Xian Wuji's crazy tone echoed in his ears. I am the proud son of the gods. In this world, no one can kill me. I, Xian Wuji, am the proud son of the gods. The person who is going to kill me has not been born yet. Waves of echoes floated in the valley and made Qin Wushuang feel as if he was in a dream. Was this Xian Wuji truly dead? He had died like this? When he looked again at the ball of light, there was a pile of ruins. When Xian Wuji's corporeal body had self-destructed, naturally the equipment on his body had also turned into fine powder. Qin Wushuang wanted to steal the goods after killing him, but it would not work. Congratulations, Master, you have killed this giant snake. With Xian Wuji's death, it's like the heavenly Emperor Xian clan had lost an arm, ha ha ha. Interesting, Master, interesting. Congratulations, Master. Qin Wushuang also let out a long breath of relief. He had made the right bet. By killing Xian Wuji, he had achieved the goal of this battle. Just when he was about to catch his breath, suddenly, the eyes of dark mysterious snake and swallowing sky lion dragon turned cold at the same time. They shot into the distance. Who is it? Come out. Like lightning, two figures shot over directly. On the other side, a graceful figure escaped at a fast speed in the opposite direction like a swan goose. While she escaped, she chanted the spell. All of a sudden, the figure came to a stop. This person was indeed the senior sister of the Amei Taoist sect, Ruo Ping Fairy. Initially, Xian Wuji had arrived one step earlier. Ruo Ping Fairy was in love with Xian Wuji and was unwilling to part with him. Therefore, she had also rushed over quickly. Only, her speed was slightly slower than Xian Wuji's. By the time she had arrived, Xian Wuji was already surrounded by Qin Wushuang and his group. Now, when she saw Xian Wuji self-destruct, the heart of Ruo Ping Fairy could not help but shake. Her mind was in turmoil, and it caused her spiritual perception to fluctuate abnormally. Immediately, she was discovered by the powerful swallowing sky lion dragon and dark mysterious snake. Swallowing sky, dark mysterious snake, hold on. When Qin Wushuang saw Ruo Ping Fairy had suddenly stopped, he remembered something unconsciously. Suddenly, his expression changed slightly. All spiritual beasts, return to the seal. He made hand gestures and regardless of whether these spiritual beasts were willing or not, he directly threw out the sealed scroll and called back all 12 spiritual beasts. After Qin Wushuang had finished everything, without a second word, he flapped the purple cloud in yang wings and dashed forward quickly. Ruo Ping Fairy revealed murderous intentions and said with a cold sneer, "You think you can escape? Tiger Saint is chasing after you. Where do you think you are going, you jumping clown?" Roar. Instantly, a tiger roar that shook the sky caught up from afar at a rapid speed. The dragon moved with the clouds, and the tiger moved with the wind. Each time this nine-change celestial tiger rose and fell, it was as if lightning and hurricane swept across the sky at the same time. It shook the sky to tremble endlessly. With a few rises and falls, he had already chased after Qin Wushuang for 30 miles. Although Qin Wushuang's purple cloud in yang wings were exceptional, after all, he was only at the perfect void martial stage. The difference between him and a divine beast at the 8th calamity of the transformation Supreme Tao stage was too great. It could not be compensated by any external object. Another rise and fall. The position of the nine-change celestial tiger had already entered the attack range. With a humph, the nine-change celestial tiger let out a loud snort. Suddenly, his spiritual perception had formed into a burst of divine light to attack the back of Qin Wushuang. Qin Wushuang only felt his spiritual perception was in chaos. For a time, he felt his sea of consciousness was about to collapse. Spiritual perception attack. Killing with spiritual perception. Immediately, these few terrifying words flashed across Qin Wushuang's mind. If Qin Wushuang had not possessed an abnormally firm willpower, most likely this attack would have been enough to cause his spiritual perception to fall into chaos. He would have died from complete collapse. At this moment, the Supreme Tao shield had appeared pale and powerless. Before a powerful spiritual perception attack, clearly this Supreme Tao shield that could only be used for physical defense was powerless. When the nine-change celestial tiger saw that this attack had not succeeded, he was also somewhat astonished. This was a strange phenomenon that had never happened in hundreds and thousands of years. For your information, even when using his spiritual perception attack to attack ordinary coagulate Supreme Tao elite warriors, it would definitely be effective in one move. There would be no possibility of launching a second attack. However, this kid at the perfect void martial stage was able to stay alive under the first attack. Luck, it's truly luck. Suddenly, the nine-change celestial tiger was overjoyed. I met a young man with an abnormally powerful spiritual perception. Ha ha, if I swallow such exceptional genius, surely I can break through instantly and advance to the genuine Supreme Tao stage. Ha ha ha, for sure. When the nine-change celestial tiger thought here, he suddenly waved one of his claws. Instantly, a net-like whirlpool of airflow covered Qin Wushuang's head. Instantly, Qin Wushuang's body seemed to have been fixed in place. Every part of his body was not under the control of his spiritual perception. When facing the pressure of this whirlpool of airflow, despite knowing that life and death were before him, he could not move a single finger to resist. At this moment, it seemed that he could only wait for death. Is it over like this? Qin Wushuang's mind was blank. Such a fatal difference. Indeed, it was a fatal difference. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 677. Qin Wushuang was almost left with no other choice. He could only close his eyes and wait for death. The instant when that net-shaped whirlpool was about to swallow Qin Wushuang, suddenly, a giant hand appeared from the sky. Like a farmer harvesting a bundle of wheat or a parent grabbing a naughty child, it caught that net-shaped whirlpool easily. That giant hand grabbed casually and twisted it to crush this tyrannical attack into pieces. That tiger saint never expected such a change. His pupils dilated as he glared at the sky. Next to Qin Wushuang, a faintly smiling face slowly emerged like an illusion. When Qin Wushuang saw this face clearly, instantly, he was incredibly astonished. This person was the trickster Li Bai that Qin Wushuang had seen several times in the human countries. Although Qin Wushuang had doubted whether this Li Bai was a super-elite warrior, he always felt it was unrealistic. Now when he saw it with his own eyes, he realized that indeed, this Li Bai was an absolute elite warrior. Just from how Li Bai had taken the move of the divine white tiger, he could see that at least this Li Bai was stronger than the divine white tiger. Or else, he would never have been able to make the first move and dissolve that attack with such ease. Li Bai still carried a face full of smiles and made people feel that he looked somewhat wretched. However, considering his previous skills, naturally, everything he had done could not be considered wretched. Instead, it was replaced by endless mysteriousness. Instantly, Qin Wushuang's mind flashed with the scenes of him meeting this Li Bai several times. It seemed to be a coincidence, yet when he thought carefully, it did not seem to be a coincidence. This mysterious Jianghu sorcerer was actually a hidden peerless expert who lived in seclusion in the city. The shock Qin Wushuang felt inwardly could not be described with words. Li Bai said with a beaming smile, "Little one, it seems we meet again?" Li Bai had used the word, again, strangely. It was because at this moment, Qin Wushuang's appearance was not his original appearance. It was the appearance that had been changed by the heart illusion mask. However, Li Bai's word, again, had fully expressed his meaning. Hearing his words, Qin Wushuang knew that in the end, he could not hide from this Li Bai. He said with a bitter smile, "I just didn't expect that we would meet again under such circumstances." There was a strange smile on the corner of Li Bai's mouth. "I don't want to either. If it's possible, I'd rather cheat you out of some wine money every time we meet." Qin Wushuang knew that this senior expert liked to joke, so he didn't say anything. He just smiled and said, "You said so much. Do you want me to treat you to a drink again?" Li Bai let out a roaring laugh and revealed an incomparably mischievous expression. His appearance was rather comical, for he did not look like a super-elite warrior that could block the attack from an 8th Calamity Transformation Supreme Tao Divine Beast casually. Ever since the appearance of Li Bai, 9-change Celestial Tiger had become a white tiger. Thus, he had been observing Li Bai coldly. Inwardly, he was furious that Li Bai had appeared out of nowhere and ruined his plan. Who are you? How dare you ruin my plan?" Finally, the 9-change Celestial Tiger could not hold back as he asked viciously. Li Bai rolled his eyes. "I am catching up with this little friend. What are you whispering about, little cat?" In any case, the 9-change Celestial Tiger was an ancient divine beast. His divine strength was extraordinary. He had lived for tens and thousands of years. Ever since he stepped onto the path of martial arts, he had been invincible. How could he not be praised by humans? At this moment, someone had stepped out to call him a little cat. Being the descendant of the holy white tiger, it was definitely a great humiliation for someone to call him a little cat. Almost instantly, the anger of the 9-change Celestial Tiger had reached the peak. "Darn human, you are courting death." With a low growl, the 9-change Celestial Tiger put his claws together, and 2 powerful white lights had already clawed at Li Bai. Indeed, the attack of this divine beast was extraordinary. Now, this 9-change Celestial Tiger was at his most furious moment. This claw attack had truly torn the entire space into 2 halves. Directly, it formed a gigantic attack whirlpool to engulf Li Bai. Connecting divine tiger claw. As soon as this claw approached him, immediately, countless white tiger shapes had appeared. Carrying a frenzied momentum, it had congealed into a genuine attack wave to charge over with baring fangs and brandishing claws. It was as if hundreds and thousands of divine white tigers had emerged. Covering the sky and covering the earth, it was like a wave. This temperament had simply torn the entire space into pieces. For a time, like a violent storm, it had wrapped Qin Wushuang and Li Bai within it. These two were like a lone boat among the torrential waves, for they were exceptionally helpless. Li Bai frowned slightly and whispered, "I hate it when people come to disturb me when I'm catching up. This little cat is so noisy." After he had finished speaking, Li Bai opened his 5 fingers and waved his palm leaf fan-sized palm casually. Boom! Suddenly, a burst of golden light shot out from the center of his palm. Instantly, like a giant fan of nature, it had swept away all the temperament and all the attacks cleanly. In the previous moment, the sky was filled with dark clouds. In the next moment, it had become calm and serene. Initially, the nine-change celestial tiger narrowed his eyes and planned to watch the other party struggle painfully under his attack. The reason for that was because its attack was definitely several times stronger than its previous attack. It could almost be said that he had already used his trump card. Therefore, he was incredibly confident and waited to see the other party's disgrace. However, in the next moment, the expression of this white tiger was as if someone had stuffed a giant steamed bun into his mouth. He was completely petrified. The attack he was most proud of, the attack he was determined to win, the attack he held in his hand. Unexpectedly, someone had broken it like this, and it had been broken with such ease, such ease. The other party had not even done anything. He had only waved his palm casually and had swept away all his attacks completely. The divine white tiger had experienced hundreds of battles. Naturally, he knew that it was two completely different matters when one's attacks were swept away completely and when one's attacks were blocked. If the other party had barely blocked it, it meant that at most they were on par with each other. If the other party could not block it, it meant that in the end, the other party was not as strong as him. However, the current situation was that it was as simple as blowing out a candle flame. It was as if the other party had completely crushed its attack with just a wave of his hand. Yes, it was definitely crushed. For such crushing, without a doubt, if the battle had turned into an attack, the nine-change celestial tiger could only take a beating and would not be qualified to fight back. What was the difference? This was the difference, and it was a fatal difference. For a moment, the nine-change celestial tiger was dumbstruck. After a while, he secretly observed the other party with disbelief. No matter how he looked at it, this mediocre and weak warrior did not seem to be an elite warrior with superior strength. At least, the other party was at the genuine Supreme Tao stage. This was the conservative estimation of the nine-change celestial tiger. In fact, what made it difficult for the nine-change celestial tiger to speak was that he could not see through the other party's strength. Regardless of how he probed, it was as if he was probing into a bottomless abyss, for he could not see the truth. You. Who are you? Could it be you are the patriarch of the totem clan? When the nine-change celestial tiger said this, his expression changed slightly. Li Bai said lightly, "You little cat, for many years no one dared to make a move on me. Good one, you do have some guts." The nine-change celestial tiger was drenched in sweat. Yet, he stammered and could not speak a word. "All right, I don't want to see you again at the Illusion Heavenly Lake. Go as far as you can." There was a trace of indifference in Li Bai's tone. However, within this tone, there was a form of awe-inspiring dignity. Just these indifferent words made the entire body of the nine-change celestial tiger tremble. "Yes. Yes. Get lost, you don't need to explain anything to the Amei Daoist sect." Li Bai rolled his eyes and the entire body of the nine-change celestial tiger twitched. Although he was the guardian divine beast of the Amei Daoist sect, he held a supreme position. If he were to leave, he would not need to be responsible to anyone. After he bowed to Li Bai, the nine-change celestial tiger did not dare to linger. With a flash, he disappeared without a trace. Ever since Li Bai had appeared, Qin Wushuang felt somewhat confused. Until Li Bai had exchanged moves with that divine beast, Li Bai had berated the divine beast, and until the divine beast had escaped in the end, the entire process seemed to have been a dream, for Qin Wushuang was completely shocked to the extreme. He knew that Li Bai was certainly not simple. However, he also knew that the nine-change celestial tiger was at the 8th transformation Supreme Tao stage and would soon be a divine beast at the genuine Supreme Tao stage. However, such a powerful divine beast was as docile as a little cat before Li Bai. Naturally, one could imagine the shock he was feeling inwardly. Li Bai stretched his body lazily. "Ah, it seems it's difficult to trick you into drinking more wine. Little one, it seems that each time I see you, your appearance is different. Ha ha ha. Little one, nice job." Li Bai's lazy voice sounded again. Then, he mumbled to himself, "It seems I have not been to this illusion heavenly lake for a long time. Mr. Divine Fortune Teller." Qin Wushuang was still somewhat confused. Initially, he wanted to ask why he had saved him. However, since he had already saved him, it seemed to be inappropriate to ask the reason now. "Little one, are you going to ask me why I came to this illusion heavenly lake?" There was a trace of a mocking smile from between Li Bai's brows. "Mr. Divine Fortune Teller, since you are so resourceful, you should be a guest invited by the Karakoram Immortal Clan, right?" "Guest?" Li Bai was stunned. Then, he nodded with a smile. "Yes, you can say it this way. Alright, you should also be going to the 10,000-year pilgrimage pageant, right? Time is running out, are you going?" Qin Wushuang revealed a difficult expression. "Mr. Divine Fortune Teller, I have some personal grudges. If I go to the Karakoram Immortal Clan, I am afraid I will get surrounded." Li Bai chuckled. At the Karakoram Immortal Clan, those people would not dare to act presumptuously. "Go, I will send you off, close your eyes. However, after that, you should return to your Qin clan. I am still that Mr. Divine Fortune Teller. You are still you, I am still me, understand?" Inwardly, Qin Wushuang felt somewhat strange. "Since you are going to save me, you seem to want to draw a clear line with me. This is rather puzzling." However, Qin Wushuang knew that the actions of the senior elite warriors were mostly profound and unfathomable. He could not use common sense to speculate them. Especially since this Li Bai appeared and disappeared unpredictably, his entire body was filled with unpredictable secrets. He could only promise, "Don't worry." Li Bai nodded. "All right, close your eyes, let's go." Just when Li Bai was about to activate his speed, suddenly, a trace of strange colors flashed across his eyes. There were some profound meanings in his gaze as he shot a glance at the place where Xian Wuji had exploded himself. Then, he shook his head and did not speak a word. With a flash of divine light, he had appeared thousands of miles away. P.S. I would like to solemnly recommend the transformation fantasy masterpiece of the famous author, The Three Attics of the Thieving Tao. Book number 1943704. He is 100% a powerful author and has a good reputation. This chapter is recommended by Old Bull. It is completely different than the majority of the favors. It is because among the works recommended by Old Bull, he is one of the few works that Old Bull is also reading. For his first two historical masterpieces, Old Bull has also read them from beginning to end. He has a high standard. All the galactic warriors who like fantasy works, please collect and read it to show your support. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.